I'm Luke Manson, and this is the Kiwistyle podcast. Here I talk to my friends in the New Zealand hardcore scene about what they've been up to and what they're gonna get up to. I'm the singer of the band Xile, and I've been playing in New Zealand hardcore bands non-stop for the last 18 years. And in that time, I met a lot of good friends, and right here is where I'm going to share those stories on the Kiwistyle podcast. Today on the pod, we got Jason Gascoigne. He's from Wellington, and he's drummed in more bands down there than you can fit into the comment section. From Guest Stab's host to Damaged, all the way up to Gravel Pit and Standover, and everything in between. But before we jump in there, my band Xile has just released a new song, Stone Cold. It's up on Spotify, iTunes, all the good places. We've also got a new t-shirt done by Jack from Guilt Trip, Riff Raptor Designs, and we also got a new holographic sticker. Just like every Xile order, sticker packs come out with that as well. So one last thing before we get into it. On the last 30 seconds of the interview, a freak EMP wave from Russian hackers come through and deleted the last 30 seconds of our interview. And in that 30 seconds, Jason put a shout out to his lovely wife, Bridget, and I lost it. So my apologies. So on behalf of Jason, this one goes out to you, Bridget. Onto the pod. Let's go. Jason Gascoigne, welcome to the Kiwistyle podcast. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks for having me, bro. It's a sunny day in Grafton.
It is a beautiful day in Grafton. We've already cracked a beer, had a chat out on the balcony about this and that, and it's time to get down to business.
Let's do it.
Jason I'm going to name off a couple of bands that I can think that you were from. Guest Stab's host.
Yeah.
Damaged.
Yeah.
Strangers.
Yes, sir.
Gravel Pit.
Yeah.
Standover.
Doing well.
Stress.
Yeah.
Old Loaves.
Correct.
Yeah. Give me 5 more. I know you've got them.
5 more. Okay. Like right back in high school, I was in a skate punk covers band, I guess you'd call it, with Chris Calabrius from Stalker.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. He was the first dude I ever jammed in a band with. That was called 1kg.
Yeah.
I went on to join a couple of Wellington punk bands called Floor Pie, another one called Sheriff Lobo. Another band. The Minimals.
Yeah.
Shumway. That's all like up to 2003 from the late 90s.
These are all punk bands?
Yeah.
Mostly punk?
Yeah, I guess I'd started out in bands more of that skate punk, like Californian, Pennywise, NoFX, Lagwagon, all that sort of stuff.
Like off skate videos?
Yeah.
Kind of buzz?
Yeah.
Cool.
We were just all like kids skating around Whitby and the Hut and stuff. We had a mate who came over from Hong Kong in I think like 95 or 96. He was like musically sounding us out and stuff, and he was like, oh, everyone's still listening to grunge and Soundgarden and Smashing Pumpkins and all that. And he had this mixtape. It was like the second Fat Records compilation, Survival of the Fattest. And
Is that real?
Yeah. And we all just got hooked on it, like when you were, 13, 14, and hearing like NoFX, Pennywise, Strung Out, Lagwagon, Propaganda, all in the first day. And I remained in that sound with blinders on for like a number of years. I just hooked on it.
True.
Took a wee while to take the blinders off and peep out and see what else was out there. But yeah, that was definitely the vibe of those early bands.
That's interesting. That's a similar introduction into my music in like a general as like skate videos and like that kind of punk. But I think by the time it would have come to my generations in the early 2000s, there was like Metallica and there was like a bit more metal in there, but the base of the music was still 50% of like the bands that you were talking about. Yeah,
well, because I mean, Metallica was around before that. I like think back in the cassette days, I would have had the Black Album, Nirvana, Nevermind, a few things like that. But that's like when I was about 8. That sort of drifted off for a little bit. But yeah, I guess from there it was like primary school. You had your group of friends, and they all had cool older brothers or sisters or whatever. And I remember having that tape of Metallica Black Album, and someone like this girl at primary school was just like, my brother reckons that's a stink Metallica album and you guys are posers because you haven't heard Master of Puppets. I was like, yeah, okay. Listen to it. I was like, oh yeah, this is the shit. Yeah, but there was a day, I think I would have been like 11 in primary school, and the first time I heard it was Battery by Metallica and Refuse Resist by Sepultura, I was just like, I want to play drums. I remember it real distinctly. It was
True.
like,
If from hearing it, or did you see them?
yeah, no, it would have just been like a mate's Walkman or something like that. But hearing those two songs in a day, like something switched, and that was the catalyst for like, oh yeah, drums has gone from an instrument in a band to one that I have like active interest in.
True.
Yeah.
So when did you see a drummer after that?
I'm trying to think. Like one of the first live shows that had an impression on me, I saw Supergroove at like one of the waterfront sheds in Wellington in like the mid 90s.
Okay.
Supergroove were popping. Still got time for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, more and more you'd start seeing stuff. She Hard was another big one. Like She Hard around Killjoy era. Still one of my favorite New Zealand albums of all time.
What was the drummer's name of that?
Tom Larkin.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a fucking beast.
And he's got a cool style.
Oh yeah. Real big, just bombastic, heavy hitter, massive beats, and just seeing heavy music like that in New Zealand and being like, oh, there's bands like this in New Zealand, because when you're like 12 or 13, you have no idea.
So those were the bands that your like older brothers and stuff would have been going to, because I remember the older kids were going to those shows.
Yeah. But then from there, I think following on from that sort of skate punk stuff, the first show I ever went to, punk or hardcore related, April 1997 at Thistle Hall. I don't know how we found out about it, but me and some of our schoolmates heard about this band from Muckhole. Called Muckhole.
Called Muckhole.
Muckhole, yeah.
What do you reckon that means?
So it's probably around the back from your balls, I suspect. Have to ask them. But they were like, I don't know, Auckland Pennywise worship sort of stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, we went along to this show, all ages, at Thistle Hall. And saw a whole bunch of bands at that, and just, I don't know, the live energy of punk music and stuff stuck with me. Who else played on that show? There was a Wellington band called WGI, Walking Groin Infection.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, solid name. Diecast, which was like a hardcore band.
That's a cool name.
Yeah. They were real good. And there was another band, Pig Venus.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So I
bunch
don't
of
know.
dyslexics in there.
Yeah, pretty much. They spelt the words wrong, intentionally. But yeah, that made a huge impact on me. And I was like, from there, I was like, right, there's punk bands in New Zealand, in Wellington, in the Hut. Had a big influence, that show.
So this is the Thistle Hall that's still going.
The Thistle Hall, yeah.
Has it changed or?
Not all that much, eh? It stopped for a fair wee while with people moving into the city and complaining about noise of the city, as they do. But yeah, no, I'm pretty pumped. I think Standover is announcing, or just has announced, depending when this comes out, that we're playing there with a bunch of sick bands, both from Wellington and out of town. Yeah. So it's kind of full circle. Like it's where I started, cut my teeth. So to be playing all ages hardcore there still is awesome.
That's cool. Because you guys lost heaps of venues like during like that quake, right? So
yeah, there was a lot that sort of shut down. Also like a bit
Bodega
Bodega went under. There was another one, it was called Happy at one stage. I think it got renamed to Puppies, but yeah, that got earthquake canned. So that was out the window. And for a while there, it was just essentially like Valhalla. I love the place to death, but you know, it's nice to see alternatives pop up. San Fran, or San Fran Bathhouse, it used to be Indigo as well. You need a bit of a bigger turnout there to pull it. If you just a low-key punk show there and you got 50 punters in a 400 room.
It's a bit dry.
Yeah, it can be a bit dry. But and I think as well, like Wellington definitely struggled for years with a lack of an all-ages scene. Like I say, when I started going to shows, they were there regularly. This all got sort of turfed out just because you couldn't make noise there for a certain period. And then there'd be, you know, all ages shows pop up at like community halls, stuff like that. But inevitably someone would make it difficult for the promoter by smashing a wall or jumping on a car outside the venue and just
Yeah.
dickhead behaviour. That
never changed. Hasn't changed. Same old stuff. We walked out of last place last weekend and there was like a body-size hole in the wall. And you're just like...
Yeah.
You know?
So that struggle's real, and as a result, early 2000s into the mid 2000s, it's only recently that, you've had decent all-ages shows start popping back up in Wellington.
Yeah.
And shout out to like Start Today and Existence, like they're doing some real cool work.
Mm-hmm.
But there was that good decade and a half where you just didn't have all ages shows, so you didn't have new blood coming through, new kids that were interested in creating and putting stuff out. And so you end up with a bunch of dudes like me just doing more and more bands.
True.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in Wellington that have been in a lot of bands. Yeah, that's for sure.
So you're saying when you got into it, you were under 18 and there was nowhere to go?
Yeah. I would have...
Were you sneaking into bars?
Sometimes. Like, there was a Wellington punk band called Brubeck, who me and a real good friend of mine were massive fans of. And they were really cool, older, like, friendly and accommodating with us, like, understanding that we like their band. And they'd do stuff like, they'd be playing at the old Bar Bodega and have me and my mate Seb pose as, like, roadies, which is hilarious if you saw us, because, like, I was about 5'6", Seb is 6'7".
Yeah.
So we look like a different species together, but these guys were cool enough to have us, carry.
So you were 5'6" in. You've had a growth spurt since then.
I don't know, man. I'll be nudging 5'7" on a good day.
Yeah. I was going to say. Yeah.
But it was wild. I was tiny in high school. Like, I'm not huge now by any means, but I was always like the shortest guy in my year level and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so guys like Brubeck, they would have mates of ours, like, carry gear into shows and then lie to the promoter being like, yeah, these are our roadies. And
that's
like,
cool.
These are a couple of drunk teenagers.
Yeah.
But
who are those dudes now?
Dave from Gravel Pit was in Brubeck.
True.
Yeah. So that was a big one for me.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays guitar for us. He played bass in Brubeck. But yeah, Paul, who was a singer for Brubeck, and Dave, who's in Gravel Pit now, real good mates. Always been like real accommodating of me as a young Punisher, like curious and interested in music and stuff. Yeah, and I did a very short-lived band. There's another one to add for the list with those guys in, I can say, 2010, like a thrash metal band called Uranium Breath.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, perfect name for a thrash metal band.
Megadeth covers or something?
We learned a bunch of songs, covers to like warm up and get together and feel each other out, and I'm pretty sure there was some Megadeth in there.
Surely like Symphony of Destruction or something.
Yeah, bit of Anthrax in there and stuff.
Yeah.
But that was a real trip for me, like worshipping that band Brubeck when late 90s and stuff, and then fast forward a few years and Paul and Dave being like, hey bro, do you want to do a band? I'm like, oh yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But no, still in a band with Dave to this day.
True. Damn, you've done a good job of explaining the sights and the smells of the Wellington scene in the mid-90s.
Oh, we can get into the smells. Like you sniff the Valhalla floor after a bad show, and yeah.
So where did Valhalla take inspiration from then? So there must have been
there
must have been a hole in the wall before that they were.
It used to be called Hole in the Wall, right? Yeah. So no, there was Hole in the Wall that became Valve.
Yeah.
Which that was a great era. Like Greg Nusinovich, I hope I said his name right. But yeah, Greg was an amazing promoter, like very passionate for supporting underground music of all different sorts. He had some real weird mixed lineups at that place.
Yeah.
But just if you were in a like underground band, he was always super supportive.
How was that place kind of survive being like so close to the main Cuba Street? You would think that it would get nudged out by rent increases or some owner who didn't care, or...
It's a good question, eh? It survived in various different forms because there was like the Valve era, then Greg set up shop and moved to Sydney. There was a brief period, it was called Medusa.
Yeah.
Didn't do so well.
So every name changes a different owner?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, it's in real good hands now with Ben. Lovely dude, great club owner. Also does a lot of international touring under
I gotta have him
Valhalla
on the
touring.
pod, bro. I gotta tell the story.
He
I
would,
want to know who does his hair.
Nobody, I suspect. I love you, Ben, but yeah.
It's looking straight down the barrel. I know he watches these. We're not making fun. We just have a laugh,
like I say,
bro.
love and respect his work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been around for a fair wee while.
So before, longer than you. Been around longer than you.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Oh, buzzing.
I would have gone to my first show at Valve in like 98, 99. Again, questionable age, but get in there somehow.
I'd love to know the story. I'd love to know, like what is the original stuff there, and
there's a lot of old school memorabilia and stuff. It's all kind of well hidden and stuff, but like there's a wall of drumsticks somewhere, heaps of old posters and stickers, all sorts of stuff. But yeah,
there's probably still wet piss somewhere from the 90s in the corner somewhere.
Yeah.
You'd hope so, anyway.
But no, that place has been like a home away from home for me for a long time. I would have played my first show there in 2001, and just seen countless amazing bands there and stuff, like stuff you wouldn't ever expect to see there too. Like, I'm trying to think of like the most packed I've ever seen that time.
Most packed that scene's at the Gates the other year.
Yeah, at the Gates and the Haunted was wild. Like you could not move. You're just literally like.
Yeah. So like people who don't know that, like massive bands, like he'll book the biggest bands and put them at his own venue, and they'll just be playing in front of 150 people. Realistically, is the most you could get in there.
Yeah,
maybe he sells more tickets.
Don't know the official capacity of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like at the Gates and the Haunted was up there in terms of capacity. Dillinger Escape Plan played there, which was wild. Parkway played there, like I think just after Horizons or around about then.
Wow.
So
cool.
like the contrast of seeing Parkway Drive in a club that's small.
A fucking headliner.
Yeah, and then you see, a decade later they're headlining fucking Vakken and stuff. You're just like, oh.
I tell you what, I probably wouldn't put it past like Ben to book Parkway and just say, hey guys, do you want to play at Valhalla?
Do you want to do a low-key intimate show for the punters? Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could squeeze Pyro in there. Don't tell me the fire system works in there.
Yeah, someone's going to A&E if you've got Pyro and Valhalla, I suspect, though.
True.
Yeah.
So one thing was circling my mind just there. So first band was called 1kg with Chris Calabrius.
Yep.
So what was 1kg?
I don't know to this day, eh?
Okay. So Chris Calabrius back in there, if you could draw me like a mental picture, well, not like mental, like...
Yeah.
I mean like mental with your brain, not mental.
Yeah, no. I know what you're saying. I don't know. A hurricane with a guitar sticking out of it somehow.
So he was always a weapon. He was a weapon back since day one.
Brutal shredder. Like amazingly gifted player. Even like, I don't know, mid-teens, and he would have like guitar tab books in his room of like Joe Satriani surfing with the Alien and stuff.
Yeah.
Real gnarly shredder. Like very, very gifted guitarist. But
you go to school with him or something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was the year below me at high school.
Oh, no way.
And I think it's similar, like his mates had all sort of found that skate punk music all around the same time. But yeah, we just ended up in a like high school band pretty much, and would play. I don't know. It started largely as covers like Bad Religion, NoFX, Pennywise, Millencolin, stuff like that. I think towards the end probably gravitated to original songwriting. I'm pretty glad those songs are lost to the depths of time. Like, they weren't great, but always got a special spot in my heart for Calabrius.
Seems like everyone does.
Yeah, magic dude.
So, listening, so you hear Sepultura for the first time, you go out to buy a drum kit. You go out to buy a drum kit? You go to the music store? How do you get in front of a drum kit?
Getting in front of a drum kit, all right. So, hear those two songs, Igor and Lars, as divisive as Lars is. I've got a lot of time for his older works.
Yeah.
I think it would have been second form, or what do they call it these days, year 12. That's sixth form. Year 8. Who cares?
Yeah, form 2.
Yeah. There were drum lessons at our school. And I'd signed up for them. Me and my mate Gav, I think, had a 20-minute lesson once a week between the two of us. So practically you're getting 10 minutes of a bit of theory and sitting behind the kit, but that's simply not enough time to get good at anything.
For sure.
I think around about that time, my folks would have, with a little bit of money I would have had at the time, bought a real rangy Century drum kit, which just lowest of the low entry level kit. And I had it set up in like a little playhouse.
Okay.
out like in my folks' yard sort of thing.
Like outside?
Yeah, like a little shed, like
Okay.
a toy shed sort of thing.
All right.
With kind of crude soundproofing, just like yellow foam down the sides of the walls, but it was still like a painfully thin shed.
Yeah.
And making noise in there, much to the protest of my neighbours.
Mm.
I always loved my folks for the fight that they would put up for me as a drummer, like just arguing with the neighbours, just being like, no, just let them do this. But I sympathise with parents of any drummer because it's hardly a tuneful instrument, even if you're good at it.
Yeah.
But back when you're 12 and just absolutely sucking, I can't imagine the patience. Yeah, so that was the early days. I think from there I was like, I'd like to keep progressing at this, but 20 minutes shared between two boys once a week didn't cut it. And so we found a private tutor who worked at, I guess, the equivalent of the rock shop in Porirua. I can't remember what it was called. No, name's lost on me. But this dude, his name was Evan Williams, and he was like a local session drummer. I think his claim to fame at the time was he played drums on South Side of Bombay's What's the Time, Mr. Wolf?
Okay.
Yeah. And I'd go out to his place and have lessons for like an hour once a week. And he was real good in terms of just being real varied. Like you'd learn a bit of rock, jazz, fusion, that sort of stuff. But I kind of wish I went a bit more with the broader stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that all changed in like 1996 when I showed up to his house with, it was a... I had a Pennywise CD and a NoFX CD, and like I said, I had blinders on to that style of music. I was like, I want to learn to play like this. He's like, I don't know if I can play that fast or teach you how to play that fast. I was like, see you. And just for the next few years was like in a basement at my folks' place. They'd moved, and would just sit at a drum kit with headphones, playing that stuff over and over and over and over.
Sure.
Yeah, and I was painfully average for the longest time, but a lot of hard work and just grinding away, trying to be Eric Sandin from NoFX and that sort of stuff. Started to get it a bit better to the point where people were like, oh, you could play drums in a band and stuff. And around about that time would have, mutually minded conversations with Calaverius about, oh, yeah, we should do this.
And what happened to Gav? You leave him in the dust.
I love you, Gav. He's still around. He's still a very good mate of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. But you're not a drummer.
Don't think he kept up drums
Didn't keep up.
that much longer.
So the drumming teachers, from what I gather from drumming, drumming is kind of like everyone talks about jazz. So do they try and teach you like jazz at first?
The guy I had at school, he was kind of like an old school dude. I guess you'd find him playing in like Irish covers bands and pubs in the city and stuff. And he just start off real simple, just like rock beat number 1, which is literally that AC/DC.
Yeah.
Then, getting gradually trickier from there.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the rock beat number 2, which was like boom, ba, boom, boom, ba. Just building very slowly from there.
And this whole time you're on a single kick?
Yeah. Initially. I didn't start dabbling with double kick till, I don't know, like 2003 or something like that.
True. That's a couple years, especially considering like all through like Sepultura and the stuff, that things that you would have heard, it's been
I think like
fills over constant double kick.
I didn't gravitate originally towards learning like the Sepultura,
so when you heard
the double kick,
you just like the sound of
yeah. But no, it was definitely single kick for a fair wee while. That whole sort of skate punk stuff, NoFX, strung out, it all kind of prided itself on that fast beat, but done with one foot.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a wee while to learn the double foot,
the shuffle,
the little shuffle.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then, when did you buy like your first like serious kit?
Yeah, that would have been, I think like 99 or 2000 or something like that.
What'd you buy?
It's a Premier Artist Birch.
Well, you've still got it.
Still got it to
True.
this day.
So it's like you saved up and just like brought the top of the line.
Yeah, saved up. Truth be told, there was a little child acting money involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will disclose where that income came from, but yeah.
You pay taxes on that? Or?
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Of
course I did.
Gonna...
No, so I had a little bit of money from some acting gigs and stuff I did around about that time, but yeah. Invest in gear.
That's actually on my list. Wadsy gave me that one. So
Wadsy did?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All right. And then, so one thing I like to talk about with people is like the actual gear. So what did you buy again?
So it was a 5-piece Artist Birch kit by Premier.
Yeah. Based on what? Why did you want that?
Conversations with a lot of people, like James, who was the drummer in that band I was talking about, Brubeck. He was our age and he got drafted into like the older guys band because they saw him at the Rockquest one year and their drummer had left and like, that guy's good, get him in.
Yeah.
But I was talking to him a lot about drum kits and stuff. Curious about what other dudes in bands that I was super into and stuff, like Josh Freese from the Vandals, Eric from NoFX and stuff, and yeah, was pretty into Birch drums.
Cool.
As opposed to maple drums.
Yeah.
Very subtle like acoustic differences and stuff. But no, just reading and knowing kind of what I wanted, having chats with people at the rock shop. Like there was a real good dude who worked in the drum section back then, Riddish Pabu.
Okay.
Shout out to Riddish. I've already started saying shout out. That's going to be hard to stop doing.
There are chuck some shout outs here too, just to make you feel comfortable.
Yeah. But yeah, initially the setup would have been just hi-hats, 2 crashes and a ride. Eventually you get into China a little later on.
Okay. So that's the hardcore days when you get to China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the journey into hardcore was a few different things that sort of played into it. Like I would say like I said before, I definitely had like the skate punk blinders on for ages. But then a few things sort of fell in place where, got exposed to new music, whether it be live or recorded. Like those CD samplers back in the day were massive. And
like the label specific ones.
Yeah. So Fat Records and Epitaph and that sort of stuff. Eventually, so Epitaph signs Madball and Agnostic Front. So they start popping up on compilation CDs and you're like, oh yeah, I think I'm starting to get this.
Yeah. This is like early 2000s?
Yeah, somewhere around then. I think Punkorama, I'll probably get roasted for getting this wrong, but Punkorama 5, maybe, the Epitaph equivalent of the Fat Records compilations. Madball pop up there, then on Fat Records. Sick of It All get added to the roster. You start hearing that. But I think the real clincher for me for hardcore was it was a live one. There was a compilation CD made in New Zealand in 2000 called A Day in the Life, and it had a whole bunch of that sort of skate punk and hardcore bands on it.
Kiwi bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, no way.
Brubeck, Kitsch, I can't remember. I'd have to look up who was on the CD.
Kitsch. Yeah.
But at the Day in the Life release show, which also at Thistle Hall, I saw Day One for the first time, and I was just absolutely blown away. I was just like, I didn't know.
It's definitely the visual aspect, eh?
I hadn't seen something that sounded that heavy, seen a band that brought it that hard, played that well. That was a huge...
And a crowd pivotal. You could get kind of involved in as well.
Yeah. Just like, this is fucking wild.
Yeah.
So no, that holds a special place in my heart. And then just little other things as well. Like I was a big fan of the Australian punk band Xile.
Oh yeah.
Their drummer Gordy Foreman is an absolute weapon. One of my favourites of all time. And then I read somewhere online say, Gordy from Xile has joined Melbourne hardcore legends Mind Snare. And so I was like, I like Gordy's stuff. I'll check out Mind Snare. And I love that band so much.
So he plays in both bands to this day.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Gordy
Foreman sounds like a fake name.
He's just one of my absolute heroes. He's such a weapon, gifted player, and from all accounts, a really good dude.
True.
But yeah, so Mind Snare pops up. So it was just a culmination of those sort of things popping up on your radar and being like, right, this is something that I'm really starting to feel and getting invested into live shows. And then ultimately, getting asked to do bands and stuff.
True. So those are like classic kind of hardcore band sounds. When does it start to get like metallic?
Yeah.
Because you would argue that like Guest Stab's host and Damaged and stuff are more on like the metallic side or like the heavier side of traditional hardcore.
Yeah.
Without drifting into like the metal scene.
Yeah.
How did so like the Wellington scene is evolving. How does it get into that sound? Because that was all happening when I was getting into it.
Gotcha.
That was the Guest Stab's host Damaged area, like the mid 2000s was when I arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very metallic. But not metallic hardcore, like metal noise, really aggressive kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think that changes for me. Late 2003, I was in a band with a dude, Dan Fraser, who's an absolute legend, real gifted drummer. Like
shout out.
Personal respects to Dan Fraser. I'm going to be on a mission to not say shout out.
Yeah, go on then.
But yeah, real good player. He played guitar in a band that I was drumming in. And he was drumming for a band called The Deadline in Wellington. They'd been around for a couple of years. Number of factors came into play, but he ended up exiting that band, and I got the call to replace him. And so I had to learn his parts for... They'd been around a couple of years, had some big shows. Like they'd supported Hatebreed in Wellington.
Wow.
I'm going to pause there for a second because that's an omission for me in terms of the hardcore journey. I think massive recognition has to be given to Dave McDermott and Dynamo Promotions.
Yeah.
Dave, as an international promoter, went on this run in the early 2000s where he bought One King Down, who I sadly missed, Throwdown, Hatebreed, The Hope Conspiracy, Most Precious Blood, all those run of shows, particularly Hatebreed, seeing Hatebreed at Valve.
Yeah.
As, a heavy music curious, angry young man.
Yeah.
Seeing
Pinnacle.
Hatebreed, like just after Perseverance has come out too.
Yeah.
There's so many people that play in hardcore bands in New Zealand now that will refer to those Hatebreed shows.
Yeah.
Back then as just like,
it would have looked so different too. Americans turning up, like that era, they would have been like wearing bandanas, Dickies shorts, like that kind of like look. It looks so foreign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got to put that the respect on Dave's name for that run he had as a promoter. Just it set up a whole generation of people that were inspired by those bands and stuff. But yeah, anyway, so I got asked to join The Deadline. I played my first show with them in the small room at Youth Zone in February 2004.
Okay.
And
Is this your entry to double kicks then? Because you said the early 2000s. Did you have to play double kick for this band?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I had played a tiny bit in one band before that, but this was like the accelerated learning course.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because Dan was really, really good at double kick stuff. But yeah, I learnt that set, played with them. That was on the heavier side. There'd be some hardcore purists that would probably argue whether or not The Deadline was hardcore. I don't know. It definitely was. I saw Tali, who sang in The Deadline's band last night, Another Fucking Problem, at Whammy. They just put out a really good EP.
Yeah.
So yeah, same old.
So Tom, the owner of Whammy Bar, plays bass.
Yeah.
Aidan
McDonald plays guitar. He's been around forever.
Yeah.
And Brogan, I think, who was in Shit Ripper, plays drums.
The drummer.
Yeah. Big, tall, lean fella who just smacks it. He's really good.
Yeah.
So I joined The Deadline. Ridian had put this show on in Hamilton. I'd gotten to know him the year before, and I think he came down with his band and Calum's band at Punk Fest. So got to know those guys. It wasn't long after that Hamilton show that Ridian moved down to Wellington to study. He joined The Deadline on second guitar, and it wasn't long after that Ridian introduced, like, I can still remember it vividly, like this gold burnt CD. He's like, oh bro, I've got some riffs for maybe another band that would be probably different to
like
the
a
Deadline.
CD-ROM.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just like burnt riffs recorded. I don't know how.
What was it called? And when it was, did he write on Vivid in it? What was it called?
I don't know if it...
Riffs.
Yeah, I think it just had riffs. Like, there wasn't a band name attached to these riffs at the time. But yeah, not long after that, he recruited 60% of the Deadline to start what would become Gestab's host. And yeah, around about that time, definitely everyone's still kind of riding that Hatebreed wave. There's a lot of bands, like I say, formed as a result of that. Trying to think what else was being listened to that would have formulated Ridian's ideas.
So this guy, so a lot of these names like Dave McDermott, Ridian and stuff, all names that I've heard but don't personally know them. So what bands was he in Hamilton?
Him and Caleb were in a Hamilton or Mount Maunganui, somewhere in between, based hardcore band, I think, called Then I Said Why.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just...
Did the majority of his work in Wellington then, by the sounds of it?
Yeah. Moved to Wellington in 2004 to study, joined the Deadline, started Gestab's host. And in hindsight, he's one of the most like influential people that's come into my life, just like real driven, got a lot of ideas, hard worker, motivated, real into booking shows. He started a label.
Which is what?
Action Man Records.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah.
It was called. He ran a distro as well. Like he'd do bulk orders off RevHQ, the Revelation Records website. So he would all around the country put in orders, like everyone go to Rev and see what they want. He'd do this bulk order, and I remember like he'd show up to shows at Youth Zone with these giant boxes of shit that everyone had ordered off
just
the
like
internet.
merch.
Yeah. And it was just like Santa had come to town, like Ridian's there with
way.
the big Rev box and stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, Gestab's host came out of the Deadline, and yeah, it made a bit of a decent wave for a band in Wellington.
Yeah.
Like people from out of town had heard about it somehow before, because I think we played the first Gestab's host show would have been mid to late 2004, and I think we were local support for a Wellington show. Might be wrong about this, but I think it was 21 Guns and Kill Me Quickly did like a joint CD release. That explains the next part about Boozy, but Gestab's host, that first show, before I'd finished the 4 count for the first song, Boozy was kicking someone, just like ignorant spin kicking across the crowd. And it's like, oh, okay.
I love Boozy's mosh moves. Boozy's mosh moves was the windmill, eh? He'd do the windmill.
Yeah, he might have been windmilling, he might have been kicking, but I was definitely struck by the fact that out-of-towners were like throwing down for this band that is yet to play a song.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I was like, oh, maybe we're onto something in terms of heavy hardcore.
True.
Yeah.
Where did the name, because Gestab's host is such an awesome name.
I think it would have been Ridian's name. There might have been like a list of other competitors for that name, but I don't know what they were. I can't remember them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we played some incredible shows in that band. Couple of real big smackdowns.
Yeah.
Like 2005, 2006, somewhere around there.
That's cool. That's like when it was happening, eh?
Yeah, it was. I went to my first Hamtown Smackdown, must have been 2004, I think. A carload of us drove up. It was the year that Day of Contempt headlined. And just, yeah, seeing a bunch of local hardcore bands on that level in that big room at the Meteor as well. I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, this is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been cool. So like Warpath, 21 Guns.
It would have been slightly before those guys. I'd have to look it up to see the lineup for that era. I think Evil Priest might have played, maybe Kill Me Quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were definitely bands that had like a big impact on us early on. Seeing them and just the heavy sound of, drop C 5150s.
Yeah.
And just people booting the shit out of each other. Yeah, pretty
I remember that being
see.
like a golden era. So that's funny how that had so much effect on you as well. Like starting a band, like it was everyone's mission. Like everyone who sat on the couch, from back in the day, everyone's mission to play SmackDown. Obviously not these days, but back in the day it was like, the road to SmackDown.
Yeah, and there were quite a few less bands around than there are now. So if you were even like halfway decent and competent as a band, you would be considered for like international support slots and stuff. Like having joined the Deadline in February 2004. 2 months later, I was playing with Sick of It All. I was just like, what is my life? This is amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah. That was a wild show, and they are to this day like one of the best live bands I've ever seen. Sick of It All.
Did you go to that recent one?
I couldn't make it.
Yeah.
It was February this year. Couldn't make it, sadly.
True.
The dad life is sometimes prohibitive to touring for any whichever show.
Yeah.
But like the mid 2000s, man, I was just wild for. There was a show in Auckland. I want to see it. I'm going.
Yeah.
Just didn't matter if it was middle of the week. Yep, get up, fly there. I remember there was one stupid mission I did where I was like, I didn't want to take a day off work, so Hatebreed were playing at King's Arms. Would have been their third visit to New Zealand, I guess, because they did that Perseverance one. There was a big show at Big Day Out after Rise of Brutality came out, and would have been the next tour after that, where I finished work on the weekday, flew to Auckland, went to Hatebreed, and flew home on a 6 o'clock flight so I could be back at work the next day. Just silly stuff like that. Yeah.
True. Was this like mid 2010s? I think I went to this Hatebreed, that show at King's Arms.
Yeah, I think it was the self-titled album had just come out, maybe.
Yeah,
after.
because they played Destroy Everything.
Yeah.
So that's off those ones.
Yeah.
So Guest Stab's host becomes Strangers, the same band.
Yeah. It was largely the same band to start with. I think, the last lineup of Guest Stab's host was the first lineup of Strangers. Guest Stabs had done that demo in late 2004, maybe 2005. We did one track. Ridian had put out a 4-way 7-inch split with, it was The Warpath, Evil Priest, Brick vs. Face, and Guest Stab's host, each doing a song that was themed around a movie.
Okay.
It was called like Hardcore Cinema, I think it was.
I've never heard of this.
Look it up.
Ask Gareth Steiner if he's got a CD-ROM.
Him and Bones will have it in the archives. Kia ora, boys.
Shout out.
Yeah. No, personal salutations.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
What did you base your song off then? If it was based around a movie?
Groundhog Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll send you a link.
Competing for Scarface or something.
Nah. But I think after that, maybe a bit of writer's block. Ridian also, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he got kind of disillusioned with that particular style of music around about then.
Are you talking about Guest Stab's host changing to Strangers?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Again, not wanting to put words in my mate's mouth, but I definitely feel like he was disillusioned with like the hardcore dance culture of like people at shows seem to be like pre-programmed to dance to a breakdown or a 2-step or, a pizza maker or whatever.
Yeah.
And outside of that, people were a bit just like, oh, I don't know what to do if there's not a breakdown on that.
Yeah. What's a pizza maker?
I'd have to get up and show you. I'm not going to do that. This couch
I've never heard of the pizza maker.
You've never heard of the pizza maker?
Picking up coins, windmills, the pizza maker. Does it have something? Are you talking about wood fry?
There's definitely this going on where you're, flinging a pizza around.
You're going into Italian. Oh, so you're talking about the base.
Yeah.
See, when I think of pizza maker, I'm thinking about when you're cooking it and you've got the shovel and you put in the wood fry.
Yeah, you're thinking about the shaft and not the base.
I'm talking about pre-production of the pizza. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell you the absolute catalyst for it, but I remember Ridian going on a holiday to Europe for a fair wee while, and there was like a mission statement to those of us in the band, like, right, we're gonna do some new shit.
Okay.
And it's gonna be based off this, that, and the other. I think around about that time, Integrity would have been mentioned. Pig Destroyer might have been mentioned. I can't remember, but the other big one for everyone in that band, Cursed, that massive band for influence around about that mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Where it's still kind of rooted in hardcore, but it's loud, filthy, and a bit less around the breakdown or whatever. But But yeah, we started writing songs in that new vein, new direction. And I think we played a couple of shows still under the name Guest Abs Host. And it not going down too well initially with the people probably that Ridian was talking about that were like, where's the breakdowns in your new songs? Like, what's going on? We played a show, I think it was one of Dave McDermott's last promotion efforts where he put on a show, Hardcore 2006. It had 2 nights, local bands one night. The second night was Ringworm's first visit to New Zealand. Got to play with them, which was an honour.
That's cool.
I love that band more than most. I'm getting a bit tangential here, eh? But yeah, we had started writing new music. We played 1 show or 2 under the old name, and then we're just like, it's pretty much a different band, eh? It's the same people, but there was a decision to change the name.
So you scrapped all the Guest Abs Host songs?
Yeah, I think initially we might have kept that song, the Groundhog Day from the comp for a little bit, but no, I just went straight into the new stuff.
How'd your drumming style change?
I don't know. Like, I'd like someone to tell me that. I don't know. Yeah. No, it was pretty different. Was quite a lot faster than most of Guest Ab's stuff. A lot of the double kick stuff went out the chuggy breakdown double kick stuff went out. There was still some poor attempts at being Dave Lombardo peppered in there. But yeah, pretty quickly we recorded a demo in late 2006. We did it with Otis Chamberlain, like the famous old head in Wellington, who I went on to
I think I still see his name on the Facebook comments section.
Yeah, probably.
I'm not sure I know who he is, but I see his name.
He's a legend, both as like a drummer. He's one of those real gifted people that can play everything, like just genius guitarist, genius drummer, real good street artist. Like you would have no doubt seen his artwork at some point.
None of that AI shit. So he's old school, is he?
We can get into the AI stuff a bit later, eh? But we did a 4-song demo with him that to this day I think holds up really well in terms of like a violent mission statement of a band. Like it sounds filthy, it sounds furious. It served the songs really well to sound that feral and filthy. We did a full-length album the year after. There was another 7-inch in 2008, and that band had kind of wrapped up in 2010 for a number of reasons. Yeah. But it was an interesting one. We had kind of, when we decided we were going to call it a day for Strangers, we're like, that's it. Going to play our last show soon. And literally not long after that, Sam Crocker got on the phone and was like, hey boys, do you want to play with Converge? Yeah. Like, absolutely. Like they're a massive favourite of everyone in the band. So we ended up delaying the breakup of that band for 6 months just so we could play with Converge.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Was that at Valhalla as well?
That was at Bodega, I think.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
I went to the Hamilton and Auckland show, but I didn't go to the Wellington one.
So this was 2010, and I'm pretty sure it was Converge, Strangers, and Antag. Yeah.
True.
And then played one last show after that at the notorious 13 Garrett Street flat in Wellington. Yeah. It was my first flat when I moved out of home. Ridian, I don't know if Ridian lived there. Calum definitely lived there. But it was one of those flats that just kind of got handed down from one crew to the next.
And it was like shows in the lounge?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
How many people?
Oh, slightly less than Valhalla.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty
Hundreds of people in the house.
It would get pretty loose sometimes, eh?
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But no, Strangers was a really cool time. Really creative time. It was the one and only time I got to Australia with a band.
No way.
Yeah, so we did, I think it was 2008, we did the full East Coast run, like Brisbane down to Adelaide.
True.
Yeah.
With who?
Pretty much just like Ridian had put together a tour not long before that, real indie sort of DIY tour with the Wrong Men.
Yeah.
So he'd kind of done that whole East Coast leg with Wrong Men, and then not too much later than that, set one up for Strangers as well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a tour package or anything. It would just be with bands.
Strangers with locals.
Yeah.
Sure. And you guys got hopped in a van and did all those massive drives?
Yeah. And I've got such a soft spot in hindsight for those long drives where there's something magic where, you know, you're in a van for way too fucking long with your best friends. All logic goes out the window. Everything's suddenly funny. The stupidest jokes.
Yeah.
Because you're in there for 13 hours and stuff like Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide. They're all long, punishing drives.
Yeah.
But
I've done those counts. So that was like my introduction into Antagonist. That was before when driving was cheaper than flying.
Yeah.
So only in the last couple of years we started flying because it's cheaper than driving because gas is so expensive and rentals. But before then, for years, we would drive that whole run and it'd just be sunrise till sunset in the van.
Yeah.
And then, none of them, they're all the same distance. Yeah. It's nuts. I would have done it over 10 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
So that's cool. How was that? How was it an experience? What year was this?
2008.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So 2008 is Australia's popping off. It's got the clubs. It's got Carpathian, 50 Lions, Parkway Drive. I don't know. Maybe Her Nightmare. Those bands from back then. Australia's still massive now and has always been way better than New Zealand as far as numbers wise. But particularly back then, that's when hardcore was still mixing. And emos were still around, so you still had like a huge alternative scene in Australia.
Yeah.
So tell me about turning up from Wellington. What was the first show in Brisbane?
Yeah, the first show was in Brisbane, and it wouldn't have been so much aligned with the generation of Australian bands you mentioned before.
Yeah.
I guess it was more sort of punk and indie hardcore sort of stuff. I don't know.
Okay.
I'd struggle to tell you most of the bands we played with. Brisbane, we played with Tear Gas, who were like a local punk band. Played a few shows in Sydney, like one at a warehouse in Marrickville, one at an anarchist bookstore.
Those exist, do they?
Yeah, this was a fundraiser.
Did you grab something? Or?
No. Someone did, though.
Can you read?
I'm a very well-read man.
Legend.
No, there's this was a fundraiser for an anarchist bookstore. And there was a big fucking debacle at that show because someone had stolen the door float at an anarchist bookstore.
Really?
Fundraising. It's like, how low does the bar go that you're stealing?
Just dogs.
Yeah. That you're stealing 2/3 worth of fuck all money for a charity fundraiser for anarchy.
People. Yeah.
Maybe they were like a true anarchist, just being like, fuck everybody's rules. I'm stealing the anarchy money because I'm the anarchist.
Something inside me. Move on. Keep talking.
Where do you want to go?
So you've made Brisbane, Sydney. So what next stop? Melbourne.
Melbourne. Yeah, we played one show in the city. I think it was called Pony. Was the name of the club. The other one we played in Melbourne was a big warehouse flat show with Scafosi.
Yeah.
Who are kind of like big punk D-beat grind sort of thing.
I definitely know who they are.
Yeah. That was one of the highlight shows of the tour.
They're not an Australian band though, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, they are? Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are.
True. They made it into my ears at some point. I had no idea where they were from, but yeah,
True.
heard the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then down onto Adelaide. Was supposed to be one show there, but someone was like, stick around for another.
Yeah. So you played 2 shows in Adelaide too?
Yeah.
True. Did you keep going to Canberra?
No.
That was it?
No, that was it. So, yeah.
So what, 6 shows?
1 in Brisbane, 3 in Sydney, 2 in Melbourne, 2 in Adelaide.
True.
Yeah.
That must have been awesome. Was that over like 2 weeks? You're playing weeknight shows?
I can't remember, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, the shit that you see on those long drives, particularly like between Melbourne and Adelaide, there's that stretch where there's literally nothing. Like there's no identifying landmarks, just desert and dirt and stuff. And I remember pulling over, like someone in the band had to, like, I don't know, take a piss or go have a smoke or something, and just pulling up to this like truck stop sort of thing, rest area, whatever you call it, and getting out of the van, and someone stumbled off to go have a ciggy or something, and we're like, guys, I'm like, what? Followed him over to see what he's looking at, and it was fucking disturbing. It was like a dead kangaroo wrapped up in a roll of carpet with just like one single tree and a dream catcher hanging over it.
Really?
And just in the middle of nowhere, and we're like, we got to get the fuck out of here. Like, this is not a good place to be.
Whoever did that stole the money at your That's for sure.
Spent the money on the dream catcher to wish off the bad spirits of the dead kangaroo.
Dude. So was that your first trip to Australia too? Was that the first time you'd personally been to Australia?
No, I'd
so
been
you knew what
times.
Australia was about and Australians and stuff.
Yeah. I think first trip I'd done to Australia for music, I went over in 2007 to see Converge play at the Corner in Melbourne.
So you would have seen a massive hardcore show then?
Yeah. I went to a few while I was there, and because I was staying with some mates of mates. There was that band Stronghold that played one of the early Hamtown Smackdowns.
Yep.
Melbourne or Adelaide band.
Yeah. With the graph logo.
Yeah.
I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of their mates had stayed with us when they came over for Smackdown, and so when I went over to Converge, crashed on his couch, and he was affiliated with that scene where you'd go to like Next and Bang and stuff like that, hardcore nightclubs, and you just walk in and I'm like, what the fuck is this place? I'd never seen anything like it before. I
always remember, have you seen that Vin Diesel movie Triple X?
Yeah.
And he goes down into that that dance club and Rammstein's playing.
Yeah.
I always remember my first time walking into Bang having that same kind of feeling, just being like...
walking around just like...
Bro.
Never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
We used to joke about how, like, I can't say anything because I've got sleeves myself, but it was a joke that you, like, walked into Next, put your arms into a machine and got just Insta sleeves because everyone was tatted out.
Yeah. Kids, man, that was the first thing I noticed about Australia. It was just, like, people, like, 20 or under, just, like, covered in tattoos, hands, neck, face. And, I think that's what kept me going to Australia was just, like, they actually it looked like they had... like a proper alternative scene.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like a melting pot. And it seemed like, I guess you maybe don't stick around so long. And maybe since you're a guest, you're more accepted. But it seemed like that you could just like morph into their scene because it was so like big and so alternative. And there was just so much stuff happening there that you could just like absorb yourself into it. I've really loved it. Yeah, back in those days. It was real cool. Yeah.
Should we take a quick break?
Yeah, let's take a quick break.
Sweet.
If you haven't noticed, Jason's talking a real big game. But little does he know, we've actually got live sets up of both of his bands, Standover and Gravel Pit, up on Judgment Day Productions. Judgment Day Productions is a YouTube channel where Matt from Antagonist AD and myself go to shows, film the local bands, and chuck them up on the internet. So up on the YouTube, we've got live sets from Gravel Pit, at Summer of Hardcore, and we've also got Standover at Whammy Bar, where Jace, or Face, whatever you want to call him, he's smashing the drums. Check it out. I'll leave it in the link below. On to the pod. Back from the from the break with a fresh breath.
What? You can try that one.
From the break with a fresh beer. All right.
Thanks, sir.
All right. So I know you said you didn't learn anything from Australia, but what do you think you took away from it? Did you have when you come back to New Zealand, did you change any of your mannerisms, or did you be like, oh, these guys do this, I want to add this to my playing? I tell you why I bring that up, because the biggest thing that I took away from seeing those Australian bands is they would put on a performance. In New Zealand, I'd only ever seen people playing their instruments, and the crowd would go offshore, and everyone was just kind of, they would get scored on the quality of their music. But as soon as you went over to Australia, if you were watching the band, they could be playing anything, in my opinion, comparatively. If you were watching them, they were putting on such a performance, and that's always one thing that I saw and I tried to bring back.
Definitely. I would say, you always want to be looking like you're into it, putting in the physical performance and stuff. And I don't know, I think that's part of what I really love about playing drums in bands is like the catharsis and the energy. And I probably overplay as a result of it. Like I used to have a kind of flicky wrist style and that sort of thing, but I would say this is not really remotely related to Australia, but about the time I was playing, starting to play all ages shows in Hamilton and stuff, you would be playing with like super loud down-tuned bands in, drop C, 5150s, but rarely were your drum kits mic'd up. You might be lucky to have a kick mic.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, I started kind of overplaying or hitting harder so that I could be heard over
to
these...
punch through.
To
other
punch
locals.
through these animals with fucking 5150s and stuff turned up way too loud. So yeah, I definitely went from kind of a flicky finesse style to just caveman, hit way too hard and stuff.
True.
It's probably starting to catch up with my shoulder. But yeah, no, back to Australia, it definitely, you pick up on that performance aspect of it from bands. And the other key learning, obviously, be very careful of your merch box at an Anarchist Bookstore fundraiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did any of the guys take away anything from that? Like, I guess you wrapped it up not long after that.
Yeah, it was done a couple of years ago. I don't know, no huge learning other than just like the incredible life experience of doing a whole East Coast run.
Being on tour with the boys and stuff. Yeah. Very cool. It's like it's like the fountain of youth, bro, I reckon. You never get. It's also the cheapest way to travel. People have no idea when you're trying to convince the band member who doesn't want to go because of money. You've got no idea that is actually the cheapest way that you could ever get there and have the best time in that place.
Yeah, and I mean, I've only done the one Australian tour, but locally, that whole era of like the Deadline, Guest Abs Host, Damaged, it was routine to be playing as a Wellington band, playing in Hamilton on a Friday, Auckland on a Saturday, and that van trip's fun as hell, but the reality of waking up on K Road on a Sunday and being like, I've got work in Wellington tomorrow, catches up eventually. And I mean, I've done that road trip with the boys countless times, but these days it's pretty much the flying life for shows if I can get away with it, especially with a young buck now, like almost 2-year-old boy. I can't justify the van time to go and play in Auckland when I could just fly in an hour.
True. How many photos have you got with band members on that tank and desert road?
Surprisingly few, eh? Like, I know it's done. I've definitely... you'd have to look in the now deleted punk-as archives.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely hung off a tank or two.
Yeah, that was the classic. Yeah, that drive is painful. The only thing we would look forward to in summer would just be jumping off Bully Point.
Yeah,
that'd be it. But there's nothing to do on that drive except, when Wild Bean was introduced into BP and you could get pies. But before then, there's nowhere to stop that's really worthy of stopping. Yeah. All right. Well, this time frame brings me around to kind of my introduction to you. So I saw Strangers at Valhalla when we come down with the Burial. So that would have been the first time I would have really met you. But the first time I listened to bands that...
I'm just trying to think if that's a possible timeline, because Strangers wrapped up 2010.
Burial's 2008 to 2011.
All right. No, I take it back. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So I only remember seeing one show.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it was in Valhalla. Yeah, I'm not sure. But when I first became a fan of your personal music, actually, was during Damaged.
Right.
So I used to just walk to work listening to Damaged, and I was in awe about how pissed off Wadsy could be.
Yeah.
And so how did this? I'd love to question him on this as well, but obviously you're a founding member too. So how did that happen, and why was that needed?
Right.
In the scene.
It's a good question.
Do you know what I mean?
Good timing actually. I had dinner with Wadsy last night, so I was able to just refresh the timeline and make sure I had my facts and straight shit.
Cool.
But yeah, no, so Wadsy had been up here for, a very fruitful time of doing Promise. He was an Evil Priest. And for a hot second, maybe 2 shows, Kill Me Quickly. But for whatever reason, when that wrapped up, I remember meeting him at Reese Owen, the singer of Standover. He used to, way back in the day, put on mixed bill
metal versus hardcore. Yeah.
Battles in the North, he used to call it. And I remember meeting Wadsy at Galatos for one of Reese's crossover shows and having a yarn then. But it would have been, I guess, either late 2004, early 2005, that I was just in Real Groovy one day, thumbing through CDs, and I look up and Wadzie's in front of me. He's like, "Hey bro, how's it going? You're in Guest Ab's host, eh?" I was like, yeah, I am. Fuck, you're that dude from Evil Priest and shit. Yeah. He's like, "I've just moved down, I'm thinking about starting up a band or anything. Do you know anyone that would be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, fucking I would."
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, I'm already in the Deadline and Guest Ab's host at the moment.
Yeah.
So that was my...
And you can only play one instrument, so you didn't offer yourself as like a different instrument.
No, certainly not. But we got chatting. I think shortly afterwards talked to Ridian about it. He was keen. And then the last piece of the puzzle was Fuzz, who played bass.
Yeah.
I'd known Fuzz or William for ages before. I think I met him at like Punkfest 2000 when he was like a 14-year-old falling down the hill after too many beers at Punkfest. But I knew he was a real good player. He played drums in a band way back in the day called Still Nothing, which Bailey from Gravel Pit sang in.
Wow.
But I remember distinctly like them playing shows, him being the drummer, and like between songs he would get up and tune the bassist bass, go over to the guitarist and tune the guitarist guitar. I was like, what is this cat up to? But
like open tuning without muting, just
I don't know. It's just the other dudes he had recruited for that band weren't prodigious tuners, and so the drummer would get up and tune everyone's fucking instrument
multiple times per set, or
possibly
after every song. This is awesome.
Yeah, so
how talented.
So we'd settled on me, Ridian, and Wadsie working together, and I'd suggested Fuzz to play bass. I knew he played guitar, but I don't think he'd played bass live in a band before. But we started working together, and it was awesome. Like, at the time, I lived in this awesome concrete warehouse flat down the bottom of Cuba Street in Wellington, where my bedroom was our practice room. Like, I don't know how I got away with it in hindsight, because it was like 12 apartments in this giant building. But for some reason, I got away with playing drums and playing heavy music in my bedroom for a couple of years in that spot.
Yeah. Are you talking like an old, like kind of like one of those cinder block flats that just have, just big thick walls?
Yeah, I no idea how we got away with it. But yeah, we'd started working on stuff. Wadsie had songs to bring to the table. Ridian originally did as well. Like, I think that the one release we did have was round about a 50-50 mix of Ridian songs and Wadsie's songs. But yeah, just struck with Wadsie's like songwriting skills. He's a great player. He's real well versed in both like the punk side of hardcore, the early stuff, and then the harder metalcore influence sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those songs came together pretty quickly and pretty organically. I think that record came out in the first year of us being a band.
What was the record called?
I think it was just self-titled.
Yeah. I couldn't think of it instantly just then. So what was the genre mission statement? So you've got Ridian and you who are doing
two other bands.
Yeah. So when Wadsie said, "I want to do something different," what did he lay it out? Like what Damaged was supposed to be?
I don't know the specific conversations that like we should have it sound like this. I think it's pretty safe to assume that Terror was hot on the brain at the time. This wouldn't have been long after One with the Underdogs came out.
It's very like early Terror.
Yeah. So
with the changes and like the quick changes and the really fast beats.
Yeah. So I'd seen Terror, another one of those ones that Dave brought over at Valve in 2003, maybe just after Lowest of the Low came out. Second time they came to New Zealand, like Guest Abs opened for Terror at the Meteor in Hamilton, just after One with the Underdogs came out, and that was like a life-changing show of just like the energy of a hardcore show with hundreds of people there all being super psyched on it, that sort of thing. So I think it's safe to say that Terror was, in the DNA of that band.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because if you look at like Wadsie's band with Damaged and then the Burial afterwards, there was still quite a bit of punk influence in the Damaged sound, with the Burial going a lot more on the metal side of it.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really tell you the musical makeup that had coloured those initial conversations and stuff. But
Was
it was just fast, pissed. I think it was tuned to full D.
yeah.
Little bit of breakdowns, but not on the super
It was
chug
kind of like
side.
the thrashy, like the riffs that turned into it would turn into something heavy,
Yeah,
like or kind of organically instead of having that ring out that dropped into the breakdown. It would turn into like
yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, like you point out, he had a lot of anger
yeah.
back then.
Was it received well by the crowd in like was it? Because I see it feels like it was so offensive that it might have been offensive to the crowd.
There was definitely some people, like, because he was not lost for words between songs. He definitely had a lot of shit to say in between songs. It might have turned some people off. He was telling me last night at dinner that like his mum came along to, I think it was the first Damage show, and she'd seen him play guitar in Promise before.
Yeah.
Her first time seeing her baby boy sing in a band.
Yeah.
And just furious.
Really?
Furious, big rants, a lot of swearing, a lot of threats of violence. And yeah, essentially afterwards her being like, I think I preferred when you played guitar in bands, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, he described it last night that he back then was kind of like a shook up bottle of Sprite.
Yeah.
Just a lot of rage. I don't know what it is.
Because I thought it was just like pure art in the
is.
anger. Like
yeah. No, he'd
if
really...
I could find some music and put it online, like I think people, like people internationally, I think need to hear.
Yeah.
Like it's comparable.
No, a lot of rage. You know, being young men, you look at the world and you find a lot wrong with it. He was just not shy of saying those things aloud. And I think looking at the targets of some of the people described in his songs, like Destroy Your Destiny being all about Brian Tamaki and the Destiny Church, which is still fucked to this day, and like predatory Christian behaviour. There was a song about Graham Capel, who was a like Christian leader who was found guilty of pedophilia. Mm-hmm. So he definitely had a song written about him.
So these songs were they were directed at like they were almost like news articles.
Yeah, almost
someone specifically. Who else?
The best one, it wasn't on the original record, but we played it live. Yeah, played it live a bunch, and it was on the never released kind of second EP that we'd worked on. But there was a Wellington Christian band called Time Only Passes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how, it might have been like Punk Airs or something like that, but Wadsy had become aware that this band Time Only Passes had shared some lyrics that were extremely like fundamental Christian, talking down on gay people essentially. And thus the song Fuck Time Only Passes was born.
No way.
Yeah. Very specifically just fuck this band in particular.
With their band name.
Yeah. FTOP, Fuck Time Only Passes. This is
glorious, bro, straight up.
Yeah.
This is poetry.
That was a banger. Yeah. It just, there were a lot of very focused rage songs.
Did any of that circle back and have negative consequences on you? Did people... No one ever hit you up about it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Yeah.
I mean, people might have said some shit on Punk Airs, but who cares?
Yeah.
No, it was an amazing, fun band to like be a part of. Obviously, joining a band with Matt, writing stuff, you're on a bit of a crash course for like playing a lot faster and stuff. Like Guest Abs and The Deadline had some fast stuff, but some of the stuff Wadsy was writing was super fast and pissed. And it took a bit of upskilling to get used to the tempos.
Yeah,
I'd probably say in hindsight that some of those tempos were too fast, and the songs could have been served a bit better if they were a bit slower. Yeah, particularly the unreleased second record, which will never see the light of day. But the first one, we were talking about it last night. I remember I listened to it the other day, and I think it holds up pretty good. It's pretty raw and obviously not a lot of quality control in terms of like, we should do that take again, we should do it better. I remember Fuzz and I did the drums and bass together live in that bedroom of mine in Cuba Street. Ridian would have done his guitars, but then we did Wadsy's vocals separately at Tim Shan. He was a guy that I'd done a couple of bands with and was doing a bit of producing around about that time we did the vocals at Tim Shan's parents' house out in Churton Park, and Tim's parents are like lovely, kind, but kind of more of the conservative leaning Christian family. So yeah, they're probably in the lounge just chilling out, and at the other side of the house you've got this tattooed madman screaming about stabbing Brian Tamaki in the throat and stuff, and they must have just been like, what is going on in our house?
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, it was an amazing time. Like, I loved being in that band. The crowd reactions to it were sick. We played some awesome shows. Got to support Ringworm with that band. We did a run of 3 North Island shows with Madball, which was mind-blowing. Yeah, I think it was like 2 Auckland shows at like 420 or Rising Sun, one of those ones down K Road, King's Arms, I think, and then Hamilton show at Ward Lane.
That's a pretty cool opportunity to rub shoulders with those guys.
Oh,
It's a decent amount of time there.
Yeah, spent some good time with Hoyer. He's a lovely man.
Yeah.
Got a lot of time for him.
Wow.
Yeah, got to play with Ringworm, and it was just, you'd get those magic phone calls from like Dave McDermott or Sam or some promoters be like, hey bro, do you want to play with Madball? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah.
So I caught your last show at the Yellow Submarine. That was the first and last time, and that's when 2 questions on that. Well, Boozy was playing guitar.
Yeah.
So did that mean Ridian wasn't?
No. So what had happened there was Ridian was the original guitarist.
Yeah.
And was right the way through the band. But that period that I was talking about ages ago where he went to Europe, and that's when...
I come back a bit disillusioned with it.
Well, no, that's when the transition, I guess, between Guest Abs Hosts and Strangers writing was happening.
Yeah.
But during that time, we still had booked shows for Damaged. And so Boob, Mike Shibley, but Boob, he was playing guitar in Strangers. And so we'd tapped him to be like, hey, bro, Ridian's going away. We've got some shows. Do you want to play guitar for Damaged while he's away?
Uh-huh.
And he did, and he killed it. He's a great player and awesome dude. Then when Ridian came back from the holiday, we kept on as a 5-piece. Yeah. But Boob had moved to the UK in 2007, and so once we knew that Damage was wrapping up, Wadsy had already moved up here by this point, and yeah, with Boob in the UK, it's like, well, we'll do 2 last shows, one in Wellington, one in Hamilton, and got Boozy to play second guitar, which was cool.
So the Hamilton show... so you did a Wellington last show too, because that's why
there was a Wellington last show.
Wellington band did a Hamilton last show, and thought that was a bit odd.
There was a Wellington show, but the Hamilton show was the last one. Yeah, and that was wild. I've seen some footage of it recently. It sounds like pure ass because it was just like recorded through a handy cam. It wasn't a great
like venue either.
No, like real low roof, quite far back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have vivid memories of that show and people cutting absolutely loose.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I remember those were like my first kind of shows, and I think I just turned up with my little group of other young friends that had driven down from Auckland. Yeah. And I remember just being like standing on the side, like just try not to be in people's way or catch anyone's eye, or just like older, scarier kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was an amazing band to be a part of. We were talking earlier off camera about how there's bands from that era that are fondly remembered, but when you look back, they're only 2 years, a year and a half, 2.5 years in duration. And yeah, Damage was one of those where I think it was 2005 to late 2007.
Yeah,
but it made a dent. And yeah, learned some really cool lessons, had some awesome experiences.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's what these younger bands need to do. They need to make more of an effort of being a statement, or like even if it is just can be anything, but like narrowing down like the niche.
Yeah, I guess
making a stain on what's impactful instead of being. Seems like a lot of people are just kind of generalize and don't really want to step out and be a character or a personality or
a person
like
of interest.
A rock star, like not a rock star, but like everyone just wants.
It's a fine balance as well, because I've definitely been in bands that go hard in your city real early to the point of overexposure. Like you're playing too many shows. There's not going to be that sort of sustained interest in your band for a while.
Yeah.
So you try and make it special. I don't know, but there's no answer for how to do a band right. But yeah.
That's one thing interesting about doing this podcast, because you hear about people like you get to talk to people that used to be like let's just say like Wadzi back in the day, how you probably couldn't get him to sit down on this couch and have a casual conversation. That's the aura of his like back personality. Or let's just say, those old pictures of Pig and when he was vegan straight edge, and him and his band photos look like mugshots, and then it's only kind of till now, after people have gotten over that and they're a bit more mellowed out, and you can get them on this podcast and have a little chat. It's quite good.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I guess being involved in this for 20 odd years or so, you meet so many people over time. Little things like, someone used to be straight edge and now they're not, and you might get on better with them as a result of that.
Yeah.
It's weird. Or just, people being in certain bands, and I feel like I've got a lot of good friends around the country that it's the right set of circumstances. Like, you were playing in this band with a friend of theirs, and if you weren't doing that, then you would never know that person.
Definitely.
That's wild, eh? Yeah.
True. Well, that takes us down. Well, I mean, we're still in like the mid 2000s.
I'm stuck there permanently. Just yeah.
Okay, so bringing you forward. I mean, not much has changed for you. You're still in like 3 bands.
Yeah.
And then, so your main bands currently Gravel Pit, Standover, and what is it? Old Loaves getting back together.
Old Loaves was an interesting one in that they'd been around since not long after Strangers wrapped up. Like, Ben was playing guitar in Strangers at the time. Calum was playing still in Strangers, and they started Old Loaves around about then, 2010. Awesome band. Like, I think Ben's an amazing songwriter. A lot of time for their music. But yeah, they'd put out 2 full lengths, and then eventually their drummer, Cam, who I really look up to, like, he's an amazing drummer, had called time and was like, I can't do this anymore. And I got the call from Ben just being like, hey bro, we got a show booked at Whammy Bar in a couple of months. Do you reckon you can learn the set? Would you be interested in do it? And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. I love a stupidly ambitious challenge like that. Like, oh, yep, sweet. I'll play with your band that I've never jammed with before in 2 months, and we'll only practice the day of the gig.
Oh.
I remember that was during the Rugby World Cup 2019, the semi-final where we lost to England. We played that one show. We had a lot of plans for, we'll do this, that, and the other more after that. But then COVID happened, like the next year. And a lot of momentum got lost. I had a kid 2 years ago. Ben had a kid. And just the cruel reality of the fact that, John lives in Putaruru, Ben lives up in Titirangi, and I live in Wellington. And it doesn't make for the most productive working environment.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd always said, if the right opportunity pops up, we'll consider doing some shows again. And then just out of the blue, Cave-In announced their New Zealand shows in June this year, and we got asked to play it, and I was like, okay, so we haven't jammed for almost 5 years, and we won't until the night before the gig, but let's do it. Like, we all love Cave-In, and yeah, amazing shows.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, literally last night was supposed to play with them at Whammy Bar, but one of the boys got the Rona. Yeah, and we had to sit it out, sadly. So yeah, we'll see what's next.
True.
Do some more shows at some stage.
Because not to glaze over like the 10 years since like Damaged.
Yeah.
Or since like the mid 2000s, but like in the New Zealand scene that was really like kind of like a low, and then it's only kind of picked up in the last couple years. And for my experience anyway, is in that the 10 years before 5 years. Whatever you're talking about, it was just like I felt like I was existing for that time. I don't know if it was the same for you, but it was.
Yeah, I was pretty low key for a while. So after Strangers wrapped up in 2010, I did that real quick project Uranium Breath with Paul and Dave, but we only played 2 shows. But in the background behind that, I'd probably started getting a bit fizzed out on bands at the time. Like you say, doing 3 bands at a time. Can be pretty.
Take up a lot of your just like your time. You don't realize it only when you're young, but when you've got like
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trying to
Well,
fit it into
that
things.
that time frame where I was doing 3 bands towards the end. So the last shows ever for the deadline we did a split 2, back to back double show all ages and then R18. You had the deadline playing both shows. Guest Abs host opened one show and Damaged opened the other. So I had 4 sets in one night. And I was just like, this is too much. This is ridiculous. But yeah, no, after Strangers wrapped up, I got really heavily involved into Muay Thai. And spent time away from bands, like fighting and training and stuff.
Yeah. I remember that little journey of yours. Did you go to Thailand or?
Yeah, I went 3 times to Thailand.
That's cool. Had a couple of fights and stuff.
Yeah, I think all in all, I had 16 fights in that time, like 2010 to 2017.
Do you ever feel the urge to just bite someone's ear when you're in the clinch?
No Mike Tyson shit.
Da.
Yeah. But no, that was a cool journey. And it came out of just like towards the end of that period of Strangers, probably like partying too much, not treating myself too kindly, and feeling like absolutely gassed drumming, playing shows. I remember there was a particular show at Thirsty Dog where, because it was fast, demanding songs, like finishing a song and just like almost like face first down on the snare, just like, I need to breathe away. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I'd started watching mixed martial arts around about UFC 69.
Yeah.
And they're up to 305 now. I fell in love with it as a sport to watch. I was like, oh, well, I'm kind of being a piece of shit at the moment. I'd like something to do for fitness and discipline. I don't want to do all martial arts, but I just stumbled my way into Muay Thai and found it really cool for just learning discipline, fitness. And then, like all good things do, it kind of spiraled from there. I was like, start sparring, and then you see your friends having fights, and then I was like, oh yeah, maybe I could start fighting people, eh?
Yeah.
And did that for 7 years.
Yeah.
With mixed results.
Winning any championships?
No.
You got any like recycled medals on your in your bedroom?
I've got some little trophies.
Shelf?
I've got some little trophies up in my attic, collecting dust and stuff. But yeah.
I heard that they use like old soccer trophies. They just take the ball off the person's foot.
It would be the same.
It's like the kick, but they just.
It would be
the
the same manufacturer that does your
yeah.
kids' Saturday trophies.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, no, it was
sentimental though, eh?
Yeah. It was amazing in terms of I found that discipline from fighting really transferable to getting back into bands when I eventually got the call to do so. And it's just, I don't know, the importance of hard work, like with kickboxing, Muay Thai, whatever. You want to train as hard as you possibly can so that you avoid getting knocked out in front of 400 people or something.
Yeah.
And when you take that back into bands, slightly less repercussions, but you don't want to suck.
Yeah.
So you do your homework. You
could
practice.
get a knockout in the comment section. I understand what you mean though, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, I get a sick burn from an unemployed teenager on Instagram rather than... really hurts, guys.
Don't
Stop
bring
it.
back memories. We'll put like a Vietnam montage over right now. No.
Yeah.
And take comment section off my posts these days.
Yeah.
True.
So it was a bit of a break between 2010 and 2017.
Yeah.
Not to dismiss any efforts of bands happening in that time, but there wasn't a lot going on, was there?
There was nothing, bro. I was slogging through. Yeah, just playing to no one. Nothing's changed. Did you bother going to any hardcore shows in Bangkok or in Thailand while you were there?
No.
Yeah.
No. The trips that I had there were largely go there and do training camps and fight.
Yeah.
At the end of it and lose to a Thai teenager, which sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
People betting on you?
Probably.
What's the Thai word for foreigner? I'm just thinking
farang.
Gringo, but it's
Farang.
Farang.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Farang.
Farang.
Yeah.
Handsome man.
Yeah.
No
Handsome
problem.
Tattoo. Mr.
Blue
Tattoo.
corner.
Yeah.
Mr. Tattoo, blue corner, no problem.
Yeah.
Probably bet against me and, won handsomely.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I'd love to go back
ruthless.
to Thailand in a bit more of a tourist capacity rather than go there and train for weeks and then have a fight.
Yeah.
But
played,
yeah,
like
seems-
3 shows there and like been around the scene, and it's really cool.
I've seen some really cool videos of it. It looks
yeah,
awesome.
It's got heaps better, like Gup from Holding On Records, and they've got like Whispers over there. And even when it comes to metalcore, there's like a band called Anilin, which is kind of like guess like deathcore, like architects kind of, and they sign to a Australian label, Grayscale, and then they go around touring and stuff. So when you turn up to Thailand, it's awesome. All through Southeast Asia is cool for shows, and you get to have a good time. But I tell you what, there was one recommendation is if you go play there, is to play the actual set in your normal clothes.
Right.
Because they want to see like a foreign band, not you playing in small shorts and a cut-off t-shirt like all the tourists that slang racist shit at them all day. That's what I've noticed.
That's one thing you notice with Thailand is even as a tourist, you quickly pick up a distaste for other tourists.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that British guy's being a dick. Yeah. Oh, that Greek guy's being a knob. That Russian guy's being a knob. And you'd find people that aren't doing that and gravitate towards them. Yeah.
I reckon if you want ultimate respect, if you ever play a show in Thailand and it's like 40 degrees inside, just turn up pants, hoodie. You take it off later, but start the set looking like that.
Get wheeled out through bloody heat exhaustion.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
So skipping over COVID, I reckon everyone had the same experience during COVID, but bringing up to current day, so you've told me about Old Loaves. We'll save the best till last. Give me some bit of Gravel Pit.
Gravel Pit, yeah, okay, cool. Long kind of complicated history for it to become the band that I think played their first show, our first show, in 2018.
Oh, yeah.
It originally started, and it went through a whole bunch of cycles, but it started out as like a project, again, involving Chris Calabrius. Calabrius,
Okay.
Paul and Dave from Brubeck, and another mate had just had an idea. It was like, hey, let's get together, learn a bunch of Bad Religion songs, and we'll do like a one-off Bad Religion covers night. We got pretty far through that learning process, and members just started dropping out, like
True.
to the point where Calabrius was involved initially, but Dave had started writing songs. Just, I don't know, there wasn't any conversation of like, hey, I'm writing songs, not the Bad Religion covers. But yeah, David started writing songs. Chris slipped off to do what is Stalker now, probably the right decision in hindsight.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of people come and go to the point where it was just Dave and I working on Dave's songs. We had said, like him and I had talked about, we shouldn't call it a day, even though it's just me and you, because there's some good songs there, and it would be cool. We should look for some people. Bailey was floated early on as a vocalist, but at the time, her and I were dating. We lived together. We trained Muay Thai together. We were working on a podcast together.
True.
All sorts of stuff together. And I'd kind of said, like, nah, that's too much. Like, all those things combined, we can't do a band together. But yeah, broke up not too long after that. All super civil and respectful. But once I was out of the hut, out of her life, then I was like, yeah, sure. You can ask her to do the band thing now. And then not long after that, got a permanent bassist as well, Matt Mason, who'd been in a few bands in Wellington, and yeah, just started making music together, and it took off. Played a whole bunch of shows. It's been a real cool, rewarding band. Like, it's fun to work with those guys. Yeah. There's been some cool opportunities as a result of it. Like, got to close a big loop for myself. End of last year, we got to play with both Strung Out and Lagwagon.
Cool.
Which were massive bands for me growing up and learning drums and all sorts of stuff. So that was really cool to do. But yeah, it's an interesting band in that it started out when the songs that Dave was writing originally, I guess more on that skate punk, like Bad Religion, propaganda influence sort of thing. More and more hardcores crept in over time. But it feels like a band that there's, I don't know, we don't have a lot of peers. There's not a lot of other bands that sound exactly like us. It's probably a bit throwback to a lot of people.
Yep.
I don't know, it doesn't feel like there's a scene aligned around that band, but it's a band that is welcomed at various different shows.
Yeah.
And no one dislikes it enough to
you guys
tell us
play
to piss
tight
off.
and you turn up and, you know, you get the job done, and it's like the salt and pepper of a gig. Like, okay, you guys are playing like thrashy hardcore, kinda.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I couldn't actually explain the genre personally as well.
And I hate describing genres. Like, I don't know, when you get asked those sorts of questions, like, oh, what would you say your band sounds like?
Yeah.
It's not always an easy task.
I don't mind describing genres to other people in person, but like if I ever have to write it down, I'm always cringing at writing it down because someone's going to take that as...
Well, no, that's technically
thing.
incorrect. I disagree with what you've said
exactly.
there. Yeah, all that.
But I don't mind saying it like in person just to give like a little spitball. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that... How many bands did Bailey do in between it? Did you say she sung for Still Nothing?
Yeah, she was... I think Vasily mispronounced the name of the band when he was on.
Did he? He was all over the show when he was on this podcast.
There's still beer in your carpet.
I gave him 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So she did Still Nothing. I'm gonna say that was about 2003.
Okay.
So it would have been a good decade plus before she did Gravel Pit.
True.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, neat.
But yeah, she got right back into it. Like, amazing voice. Yeah, great singer and screamer.
One time I timed her because we do like the Judgment Day productions. We've got like the live set.
Yeah.
We timed her doing the scream for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, I know the song. It's just got a working title at the moment. When we eventually put it out on an album, it might have a better song title than its current working title. But we always tease her in like, there's that famous 8 Foot Sativa live to air video. Yeah. Where Jackhammer just passes out at the end of a real long yell. And so we're just like, Bailey, don't do a jackhammer. But yeah, no, she smashes it. It's cool.
She's incredible because I can't even do a scream for a 4 count at the start of World Demise. Like,
yeah.
Whoa.
Just, I'm waiting to see someone do a jackhammer in the flesh and just like pass the fuck out while singing. Yeah.
I heard there was like a real famous one. Either it was in, maybe there was 2 of them. Maybe wasn't Ben Vegan famous for it too when he became the singer? And either they were doing like a showcase at Real Groovy, or it was in Albert Park, like a park thing. And then, he just did the big scream, and he kind of, to get extra gas, he went down to his knees too, and then just fell like on his head.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
Gone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the perils
commitment.
of,
We're not talking
commitment
trash.
to the bit
Yeah,
to just scream until you pass out.
Oh, bro, we were actually tossing up doing an 8 Foot Sativa cover. Yeah. For like a SmackDown.
Which era 8 Foot are you talking about?
Just step up for Sativa. Yeah, but not play the whole thing because it goes way too long. Just do the chorus twice and end after the second chorus because everyone wants to hear that again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
I think if you were going to do it anywhere,
like,
Hamilton's the spot.
Yeah.
There'd be some appreciative throwback for that.
Maybe we could get like a costume of like a big weed plant. Surely someone's got one.
They'll be out there.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, I challenge you personally to do that at some stage. That if only for my own entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon more people need to do covers. It's difficult though, because there's so many generations of kids at shows now. Like you can really go wrong. Like we did like an old school Parkway Drive cover.
Yeah.
And the younger kids at the shows, they don't know like Killing with a Smile. And they only know like the new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we played it 3 times over the 3 cities, and it fell flat. Only one person sung it back to me. J-Sag from Soul Void sung every word back to me at Auckland. Yeah. And that was it.
Yeah, I've definitely had my time in the sun with Swing and a Miss cover attempts. Talking about Damaged, we definitely had a few where we played one of those crossover shows of Reese's once at King's Arms. I think it might have been our first show in Auckland. Wadsy and I and Ridian had talked about doing, as an intro, There Goes the Neighborhood by Body Count.
Okay.
Thinking, it's a banger, it's going to go over well. We did it, and it just absolutely ate shit. Yeah. And just like...
Surely that song drops a couple of N-bombs in there.
Yeah, I think it would have dropped out before any racial undertones came in there, but yeah. No, that was a swing and a miss. More recently, Gravel Pit did a cover at a Halloween show. We did Halloween by AFI, which cool. I think in turn is a cover of Misfits? Yeah. Misfits song, and that went down like a cup of cold sake, and it's just when you put all that time into learning a cover and then it goes over poorly, you're just like, really regret that really time spent. Yeah. You can just blame the kids not knowing shit or something like that, but no, there's definitely been some banging covers over the years, but equal portions of just swing and a miss. You thought it was going to go down real good, and then there's just like 2 goats nodding their head in the corner of the pub.
Big stinker, eh?
Yeah. You got to try. But yeah, it's easy to make assumptions about what people will like or will still collectively remember and be like, yeah, that's a banger. And sometimes you get it wrong.
So the last band to talk about, Standover.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it seems like you've got like a little bit of an MVP of New Zealand's most ignorant members. So you got like a basketball team of like everyone offensive in some kind of way.
Yeah, no, just don't call it a supergroup, and I'm fine with any other way to describe it. But yeah, so no, I'd known Vasily for 20 odd years. I think I first met him at Youth Zone in Hamilton when either the Deadline or Guest Abs hosts were playing a show with his band at the time, Total Fucking Defiance, TFD. And it was back in that era you talked about where them and their crew were like larger than life.
Yeah.
Almost caricatures in a good way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd been in touch off and on throughout the years. I always remember like he bought Damaged up to Gisborne in 2006 and just like incredible, like amazing host, real hospitable. And anyone that goes out of their way to do that for you when you're playing out of town, you always look on fondly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'd gotten on well for ages. But yeah, fast forward a few years, he's moved down to Wellington, and he had talked to me about it once. I know he said one particular time period when you talked to him. I can't remember, but I'm gonna say 2017 or 2018, somewhere around there. He'd been like, hey bro, do you want to get together and do some stuff that sounds like Integrity and Ringworm? I was like, well, you're speaking my language. Absolutely, they're two of my favorite bands. But at the time, I was in a couple of bands. I think it would have been Stress and Gravel Pit at the time. So I couldn't justify it at the time. But fast forward a couple of years later, and we had another catch up at another show, and he gave me the elevator pitch again of like, bro, we're going to do some heavy hardcore that sounds like this, that, and the other. And, And this time around, I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I think it was late 21 or 22. God, I'm bad with dates these days. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we had the idea. He had always had Reese in the chamber ready to go, talking about doing a band and stuff. And it fell together nicely with getting the notorious Mikey Shields on bass and Luke Weston on guitar. First jam didn't go so well in that Vasily had sent very few people out the required demos or riffs to have a fruitful first jam. Okay. And we'd all also gone out to Ulcerate in the city the night before and had a rather non-productive evening. And just showing up to practice, all just sweating poison. No one knows the riffs. And it didn't look like there was a bright future. But no, we did eventually get the files circulated, everyone on the same page. Reese was in the mix by that stage. And I remember Reese from a very long time ago. Like I said before, he's booked shows.
Forced to submit,
Forced to submit. And just an absolute force of nature in a pit. Fearful man back in the day. Still is, but very nice guy. That first time he came down and had a jam and yelled over us at band practice, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I was like, oh, true. This is awesome. We're onto something here. And we worked real hard, kind of not in secret, but just didn't tell anyone about it. Worked for like a year. Yeah.
I recall getting the demos. Every now and again, I get a demo from Vasily. Is this cool? Right, yeah, man.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a hard band to commit too much time to because, I mean, Reese lives in the far north, so every time we practice, he's got a hell-ass long ride on a bike down to the airport, flies from Auckland to Wellington.
Like on a push bike or?
No. A motorised cycle, sir. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mikey, living in New Plymouth, has to drive the van down from Taranaki every time we practice, so it's kind of a...
I love to see him suffer, though. I don't care, but
likewise.
Reese suffering, I got a bit of compassion for that.
Yeah,
if Mikey
absolutely.
Shields suffering,
yeah, so it's kind of a best case scenario, we jam once a month. But, we're all grown-ups. Everyone does their homework. Demos are circulated in a timely fashion. But Vasily's just got riffs on riffs. Like he's a riff dog.
You're coming up to your second release. So the first EP, Let the World Burn. Is that a song? What's the EP called?
I just want to watch you suffer over and over trying to get it going.
It's Something Burn.
No, just keep going.
Nah, that's the only thing that's like circling my mind.
I'll let you look it up and you can get back to me.
Go on then. Okay, so first EP, now you're recording the second album. I've got control over this edit, so I'm going to look like the master when I find this.
Yeah, no, you go for it. That's all good. The demo, sir, is called No Space is Safe.
Yeah, fucking hell. I knew that.
Yeah. No, so we played our first show with Xile. Thank you.
There's a song called Watch It All Burn.
Yeah.
Yeah, first show with the Xile.
Yep.
That's right. Wellington. Album release.
Yep, that's the one.
It's on the wall here somewhere.
It may well be. Yeah. Played Wellington for the first time. Not long after that, we played Full Noise in Auckland. And that was a legendary show. And
that was real cool. Yeah, I was away for that. But
it popped off, man. We hadn't played there before, and people went nuts.
Yeah.
And it was strange. Like, it was a bit quieter the band before, and it was a bit quieter the band after, because I had to play directly after Standover and Gravel Pit, and it was like, where are all those people that were here 20 minutes ago? But yeah, the response has been amazing. Like, it's a great band to be a part of. Everyone's really good players, knows what they're doing. Everyone's gear's sick. Everyone sounds good. Great players, know what they're doing and stuff. So no mucking about. But yeah, we do have an album tracked. It's in the can. It's currently being mixed. I don't unfortunately have too much more to tell you about it at the moment, because as soon as I say...
heard your snares really loud.
Yeah, probably. as soon as I say, Luke, here is the release date, we'll get fucked at the pressing plant by like the back order of Celine Dion's greatest Christmas hits, Volume 8, and I'll look like a dick because I gave you the wrong time. But I'd say, hand on heart, this year. Yeah. Yeah.
I know all about taking 4 years to release that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely look back on both for Antagonist and for Xile for you. You guys got absolutely hammered by COVID, eh?
Yeah. There's a big, for that single, there's like a massive backstory of, we went to Australia twice to try and get like an EP and then an album done, and just got wasted by COVID and lost thousands on thousands.
Yeah.
So yeah. So with the growth from No Space is Safe to the new album, what's the direction? What's happening?
It's heavier. There's a lot. It's a good mixed bag of like fast stuff. There's some slower groovy stuff. Definitely
full length album, 10 songs. You got like a whole collection of a vibe in there.
Yeah, it's angry. Similar to Wadsy, Reese as a straight edge gentleman falls more on the violent side of lyrically.
I just imagine him just like waxing a surfboard and just really having to dig in there and just being like, all sorts of things burning and inside his mind.
Yeah, lovely man. Got nothing but bad. Sorry, bro. Got nothing but bad things to say about Reese on. But yeah, it does seem if you treat him poorly, you might get a very violent song written about you.
Yeah. And how about production wise? So when you did the EP, is there anything you tried to level up for the sound of the album? Or?
Yeah. So I think this time around we paid more attention to get a good organic drum sound.
Cool.
So last time around we had just done the drum tracks for No Space is Safe with a mate up in like Parapara Beach. Luke, who is in Standover and basically every band in Wellington.
Yeah.
He's in
Body
Gravel
Siege
Pit
as well.
Body Siege. Standover, and he was in another band called Vicissitude, although half the members of that band are now in the UK, so I don't know what's going on there. But also Fat Dick. So the guitarist from Fat Dick, we went and recorded the drums for No Space is Safe with him last time. This time around we went with Troy Kelly at the Armory in Wellington.
Cool.
I'd worked with Troy years ago on the first couple of Strangers records. real good dude, real comfortable and chill to record with. But yeah, amazing big room, really well mic'd, sick DW kit.
Yeah.
And really had done our homework on the song so that you're not going in there and working out stuff on the fly. You've been doing your homework first. And yeah, it was a really cool 2-day session that we did. Yeah.
What snare are you using?
The snare, we spent quite a bit of time. Troy has an absolute arsenal of snare drums.
That's cool. I remember picking snares, going through snares when someone's got like a whole row of snares, like Lee from Thy Art.
Yeah.
He's got like just like a shelf of snares. He was just like, try this one out. I'd never done it before, and I was like, it was pretty cool.
So we ended up with a pearl brass 14x5 snare that cracking around with all the other ones. It was like, that's our boy.
Cool.
Yeah, and we literally just had the first test mix back this week of our song, and sounded pretty big. Big. Yeah, from there, Vasily and the boys have done all their tracks, home tracking. Reese came down and did his vocals in June, so now it's all just being put together in a lovely fashion.
Mix and master.
Yeah, there'll be some more info coming out here. I want to speak on the title or the artwork just yet. That's Vasily's game.
Yeah.
Or the date, but I'm gonna say 2024.
I will say I thought the artwork was very Deerside inspired.
Have you seen it? Oh, okay. Oh,
I thought it was quite cool.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like 90s Deerside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can absolutely cut this part out now, so I'm just going to tell you this because I can't be fucked turning the mic off.
Yeah, I cut everything out.
There was originally an AI version of the art.
No way.
Yeah. So he'd come up with the whole concept in AI.
Yeah.
We'd talked about
That's a cool way to come up with a concept, to be honest, to be completely honest.
We'd talked about it, and then it got put into the band group chat, and it was like, there's a bit of, outrage about this AI stuff. And yeah, a poster's one thing, but the album cover, just do that concept in your garage with Mikey Shields' hand with barbed wire wrapped around it. So that's my tangent, and you can clean cut right about now. Yeah. No, so the art's cool. I love the concept that VAR has for the title, what it means, where it comes from. But he can explain that and not me.
Yeah. I remember for the I Am Your God album, I had a concept for the artwork, and it was like it was loosely based around Deerside Once Upon the Cross. You open it up and it's got like Jesus on the morgue table. And then also the God Hates Us All, the band cover with the nails in the Bible and the pool of blood.
Yeah.
And I had this idea with like a hand and like a pool of blood. And I went on Amazon and I ordered necklaces of all like the religious like symbols. And I remember my first time I got all the necklaces off Amazon, and some of them were like different sizes. So it was just like the cross and the Jewish star, and then like the Muslim sun and a whole lot of and dog tags and stuff like that. Some of them are different sizes. And then I went back to Amazon and ordered the right size like that. And I took a photo with my hand with it, like all of them in the hand, kind of like they were clutching like like a dead person was clutching all of them. And I sent that off to like the Thy Art Is Murder artist at the photographer at the time, T-Sav. And then he took photos with his model with a hand and like blood. And then it got turned into, what you see there. But there's always like a backstory behind something. And it's really cool to like have a vision. I think only people that are like our age care about the album art and like the visualization of it. I don't really, from the other people I've talked to, it's not really, it's not a thing. I mean, maybe it's from picking up a record and it being that big in front of you and you looking at it and flipping it around, looking at the back of it and have another thing like, because a lot of those B-sides got lost. Only if you buy the Xile CD of that album will you see more B-roll shots of it, but it doesn't exist anywhere else.
Right. I'm just looking over to see the reference shot because you do have it framed in your lounge.
Yeah. So that is a real photo that has been so when it went to the label, there's actually two versions, and we always thought we'd actually release a version where it's got the realistic with no filters, but that's with a filter over it. So the original one is the hand is actually skin colored, but it just stood out too much. So that is a real photo. That's a real photo with just layers and whatever the Tony from BDHW did to it in Photoshop just gave it like an artistic kind of look. But that's a real hand with real necklaces. Yeah.
Sweet. So you're not going to get bombed out by teenagers on Instagram
no way,
you're breaking the
idea.
industry?
All right. Well, we're back from the break and we've got a fresh beer. We're going to round out this podcast with some quick fire questions. Jason Gascoigne is known as Face. Why?
Good question. So that goes back to 2003. So that nickname's well over 20 years old now. I've had
21 years old.
Yeah.
Well over.
I've had some interesting guesses or questions about what it was, but no, the facts are as follows. 2003, I'm in a band called Shumway. We're at band practice one day and a mate of the band comes by to watch practice and was like, hey guys, I'm doing a photography portfolio assessment for uni. Would you mind, I've chosen live performance. Would you mind if I come by practice and shoot some film of you guys practicing, and that'll be part of my portfolio? And we're like, yep, sweet, all good. And of course, this is, back in the film days, there's no digi cameras or anything. So he goes, takes a bunch of photos, and comes back the next week later after he's got his film developed. And I remember to this day, Dan and DJ, the two of the other dudes in the band, were combing through this box of photos. Just like, oh yeah. And then just stopped on one and we're like, oh!
Okay.
And I was like, what? Gives a look. And they turned it around and it's a photo of me playing drums, just looking as physically challenged as you possibly can. Something to that effect. And they just started yelling Jace the Face, Jace the Face. Yeah. And it kind of stuck from there. And
were you laughing with them or were they laughing at you?
A little bit at me. That they're definitely laughing at me, but I'm laughing with them laughing at me. Mm-hmm. It's a real shame that photo doesn't seem to exist anymore. I would
have loved to just put it right here.
Yeah,
up on the screen.
If you can superimpose it here, that'd be great. But I don't think it exists. I couldn't even recall the photographer's name to track him down. Yeah. Do you have a copy of it? But yeah, it stuck, and just people started calling me Face. I remember playing shows out of town. There's probably bandmates, mothers of mine that don't know my name is Jason, and they just be like, is Face coming around for tea? Yeah.
Boozy is a big one. Who knows? I have no idea what his real name is, to be honest. But Boozy.
Chris Bosman.
Even around this, Christopher Bosman. But I mean, his missus is since he's quit bands, right? So she doesn't know him as Boozy and stuff as well. So it's always quite funny. Yeah,
so it's petered off a little bit, but there's definitely more out of town. Auckland, Hamilton, I'm definitely still Face in a lot of those places. But yeah, I go by Jason.
What is that with the nicknames back in there? Because it was massive in Australia. It was, you've got Boozy, Wadsy, Face, Boobs, or or whatever, and then the nickname thing didn't bleed into my generation. Yeah. Besides profanity, idiot, or moron, I never got a cool one.
Yeah. No, in terms of nicknames, I could have done far worse, and I don't know. It's part of my history now. It's, like I say, older than some of the kids that talk shit about us on Instagram.
True.
Hi. Yeah.
I thought that had something to do with Wadsy's question, which was, what was your career as a child actor? I know you alluded to it previously, but I didn't want to get too diverted from the music scene.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
So were you exploited at one point?
No. So yeah, my TV. No, I'm gonna try that one again. That was terrible. Yeah, my father is a TV host, radio broadcaster from pretty big in New Zealand back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, I was enrolled in a talent agency. I did my first TV commercial when I was 6 for Hudson's chocolate chippies. Mm-hmm. That video is still somewhere around. You've got to scour deep on YouTube to find it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I did do a bunch of TV shows through the mid-late 90s. Don't look at the camera like that.
I'm just checking if they're on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so The Tribe and stuff like that. I actually played 3 characters in 3 different seasons of The Tribe. That's how deep the talent pool was then.
Wow.
But yeah.
Did you have anything to do with old school Hercules and Xena?
No.
Is that on your radar?
Hercules and Xena. I did once do a TV show and did scenes with William Shatner.
Oh, really?
Old Star Trek himself.
True.
But yeah, I kind of bailed from that whole gig.
Did you age out? Was it like a...
No. It was nothing like that. It was would have been like late 90s, early 2000s. Probably coincided with the time that I started getting into punk bands and stuff.
Nice. You wanted to be a music... That's where the money was.
Yeah,
I see where you're going with
I really
this.
failed the money trail on that one, eh? Like, I left pretty lucrative acting gigs to go play
You could have
to...
been on Shorten Street, dude.
Yeah.
Straight up.
No, instead I chose to play to 40 dudes and a goat at Valhalla for the rest of my life.
All right.
Thanks, Wadsy, for throwing me under the bus on that one. I wasn't expecting that.
Give me the first best NZ bands that come to mind.
First best NZ bands.
Old bands. Anyone's that had the biggest impact on you that you weren't in.
Yeah, okay. Brubeck, Somerset was a massive one for me. Day One, like we touched on earlier. Promise of Bloodshed, Evil Priest, Kill Me Quickly, Antagonist AD. God, there's so many. I'd said earlier that She Hard was a really important one for me early on. Ulcerate.
Yeah.
Huge fan of that band. It's
I'd love to get them on the podcast. I'd love to get, because they're heading over to India.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I was just like, man, sure, because they're like notorious for like not really sharing anything or like talking. But I was just like, man,
that doesn't look like a in terms of sharing, that doesn't look like a drum kit particularly that you'd be sharing with a whole bunch of bands. Or are you just talking about facts and
no,
life?
I mean like if you try to find interviews or
yeah.
This is actually a baseless kind of thing, actually. But
Yeah.
I just don't know much about them.
Just absolute
I have
slander.
not looked into it, but I'm just claiming it.
Well, I think if you were to explore that avenue, Reese from Standover is usually their merch guy. So he's down and familiar with them.
True.
If you want to inroad, hit
What's
up Uncle Reese.
What's a funny New Zealand hardcore moment that comes to mind?
That's a good one to put me on the spot, and you're dealing with 20 years of fizzled memories to work through. I think one that just jumps to mind at your question, there was a Hamtown Smackdown that Guest Stab's host played where Redian was, having a pre-song rant, probably about capitalism and shunning possessions. And
I'm glad I missed the rant era.
The rant era? Oh, it was amazing. But yeah, he was mid-rant talking about shunning possessions and capitalism or something along consumerism. And then you just heard HD Steve from Brick vs. Face be like, bro, but what about your records? And it was like a needle flew off a turntable. Like, just completely detrained his
thought process.
Yeah. That was a good one. One of the funniest things I've personally seen, so Strangers supported Dillinger Escape Plan the first time they came to New Zealand. I'm going to say 2008. And it was at that the transmission room down the bottom of Queen Street or Mayoral Drive.
Yeah, I
so
recall.
big downstairs basement sort of situation.
Couple flights of stairs downstairs, yeah.
Pretty big venue and such, but we were in the, the warm-up room, the dressing room or whatever, and you had to walk up a flight of stairs that was connected to the actual stage itself by like a real thin plank. Mm-hmm. So you had to literally walk a plank with a gap in the stage to get up to where you were playing. And I'm pretty sure I was behind Rich, our guitarist. I might have been in front, but I like to think I was behind him. Mm-hmm. And just seeing him walk up the stairs, start to walk the plank, and then just fall off and disappear into the gap between stages with this awful yell of like, "Whoa!" Like pretty badly hurt himself. But it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Sorry, Rich.
Did you help him up, or were you still laughing?
I think I just went straight to the drums and started warming up. I was like, she'll be right.
Yeah. He'd find his way out of
He
He's
played the show like an absolute trooper, but he had quite badly hurt himself.
Mikey Shield says, how many zoots can you have before you can't play drums anymore?
Yeah, Mikey's seen some stuff. No, I don't think that particular lifestyle goes well with drumming, nor does drinking any more than 2 or 3 beers in an afternoon.
What wins over fry bread or hash browns?
So you've got some questions from the Standover camp, I see. Hash browns is the synonymous food group of Standover. So
Okay.
we have had some glorious flatbread. Thank you, Vasily, and his random workmate. But hash browns wins.
Cool. This one from Reese. Guest Stab's host was the first band I saw of his. I got them up to Auckland to play a show with Ulcerate, Asphyxiate, Antagonist, potentially one of their first shows, and Relentless Attrition. Damage was cool, but Guest Stab's host had that metallic edge that I liked about hardcore. Any memories of his time with that band I'd be keen to hear. So we did run through that, Reese. Thanks very much for that.
We did run through a little bit, but yeah.
What about that show? Can you recall that show?
I remember that show. Yeah, Reese had booked that show. It was somewhere off K Road. I think it's a strip bar now, Eden's, maybe?
Yes.
Doesn't matter. But yeah, first thing that I'm recalling about that show is you open for Ulcerate when you're like 21 and then you see Ulcerate and you're like, what am I doing playing music? Like, they're just infinitely better than us. But yeah, no, I'm really appreciative of that era where we had a really welcoming crossover from more metal bands because it was on that metallic side of hardcore. But yeah, there'd been bands I'd been in prior where that wouldn't have happened. But yeah, Guest Stabs in that first early era, there were some massive shows and people loved it. Really appreciative of that time. What's
the crappiest setup that you've ever rocked up to a show and been handed?
Yeah, I can remember that one distinctly. So that was the first show back after COVID. Everyone's been really excited about, we might finally go down to traffic light orange or level 2 or whatever it was that allowed you to play in public again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was around about the time that Gravel Pit were working on the split with Wolves. I don't think that the record dropped in time for that to be the record release, but we played at the Underground in St. Kevin's Arcade, that one opposite Whammy pretty much.
The one with like the bank salad door.
Yeah, little concrete shithole from memory. The lineup was
Why has it got 2 posts supporting a ceiling in a room that small? It must be like so structurally unsound.
The lineup was Gravel Pit, Wolves. It was the very first drop-off point show. COVID. Everyone in Gravel Pit, apart from me, got COVID at that show. Yeah, which is weird because I ended up we had shared accommodation. I was in a room with Matt and Dave. They both had it. I flew home to Wellington, sitting next to Bailey on the plane, and she had it, and I didn't get it.
No way.
Yeah, but at that particular show, walking in there, and you see those memes of like a shitty drum kit setup?
Yeah.
That was what I was presented with there. It was only slightly saved because Corey from Wolves was real particular about bringing cymbal stands and all that shit. So it kind of saved it. But what I was presented with that evening was
originally,
simply unacceptable.
Was there a drum seat?
Yeah, probably only because of Corey. But no, there's been some real shitters over the years. But that's
I can tell you haven't been through Asia because the amount of times that we've turned up without a drum seat and people just play on like plastic school chairs.
Yeah.
Jai's played on crates before. We played a show in Colombia's in South America. What's the one that starts with C in Southeast Asia? Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
Played a show in Cambodia where he had to play on milk crates.
Yeah.
2 blue milk crates. I remember it, bro. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Sounds like you've had a luxury time by...
Yeah, no, I've been pretty blessed with reasonable drum kits. But yeah, every once in a while. Like, I spent the first good decade that I played in bands, I was pretty particular about bringing my kit to shows. These days, I can't be asked, and I bring, the essentials, snare, cymbals.
So it sounds like you had like a pretty personal hatred against that venue. Have you played worse venues?
I mean, that venue's no longer operating, and I'm not really sad about it.
Yeah, I never got to play there.
Yeah. No, I don't know. One of the best shows I've ever played was in Rex's fucking cowshed in Hahe.
Oh, I never got to go to one of those.
Coromandel Takeover.
There was only 2, wasn't there?
I think he did a couple on the actual farm itself.
Okay.
And we did one with Damage there. Amazing. And up until recently, sadly, it was the most I'd ever been paid to play a show. Rex just walks out with a wad of cash.
Yeah.
I love
wonder
that.
Where that come from. Definitely payers.
Cows.
Definitely door payers. Cows.
Cows and payers.
Yeah, milk. Yeah.
But yeah, he's coming back. Moment of Truth, October.
Yeah.
Foundation Fest.
Reunite.
Be there.
What do you call that? A reunition. Reunation. I just went to see
It's a reunion, I believe.
Reunion.
Yeah.
That's the word. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
English not my first language.
No worries.
Just last weekend, I saw 2 reunions for the break-in and
break-in?
salvage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I should have been familiar with that word.
Yeah. No, there's not a lot of venues I really dislike. I mean, there's memories of shows in venues where you had 5 punters.
Mm.
I've played shows where there's been more people in the touring bands than there were locals come to it. That's you, Nelson.
Is there anything you want to tell to anyone you've played in a band how hard it is to play drums and how underappreciated you are?
Oh, look, they understand because I usually make it known. Not shy behind the kit, sharing opinions. But no, thanks to anyone that's put up with my shit for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah. I'll just say shout out to vocalists really for just not having to set up anything.
Yeah, I've had the full gamut of very hands-on, helpful singers that will be like, bro, do you need a hand with your drums? And then the others.
Yeah,
you know.
the others.
Yeah.
We won't dwell too long.
Not dropping names.
Right. Someone gives you a deck of cards and you're building a fantasy band. You're not in it. Who's your drummer?
In New Zealand or like worldwide?
Let's just go New Zealand first. Give me a quick fire.
A New Zealand hardcore band.
New Zealand, yeah. You want to make a New Zealand hardcore band.
Would
Hardcore encompasses metalcore and hardcore. So just like you want to make a heavy band,
right? I'm not going to pick an individual, but I'll go down to like maybe 2 or 3.
Okay.
Okay. Go on. King George from DMS and Evil Priest.
Cool.
Solid, just solid as a rock. Awesome. Laid the foundation for a lot of us. Izzy. Israel McKing.
Izzy AD.
Izzy AD is a monster.
Izzy is the most best person I've ever played with. So much groove, so much style. You look over and his style, his look, like chef's kiss, bro. Straight up, 10 out of 10. Izzy AD.
100%. A lot of love for Izzy.
Yeah. Said 3.
3? Okay, I'll go Dan Fraser because he's just absolute savage. His current band at the moment, For Starvation. Okay. Real treat to watch. Just real intense, like grind metal. I don't know what you'd call it, but I love watching him play because it looks like at any given time the wheels could completely fall off, but they never do. True. But the struggle is inherent in watching him play, and I love it. He's a beast.
Does he do like a real loose, like hand over punk beat that his kind of body's drifting?
Yeah, there's a bit of leaning here and there, and it just the facial grimace of things could go south, but very seldom do.
It's a 4-piece. Who's your bassist?
Regretfully, Michael Shields. Yeah.
I would say that it can't be someone you've played with, but like, I don't want you thinking too hard about a bassist because
who does?
Nah, no one. Who's your guitarist?
Who cares about bassists? Love you, Mikey. I'm looking around at posters and being like, is there any band I can think of all of a sudden that?
Let's fast forward. Singer. Who's on someone you haven't been in a band with, haven't played with? Singer makes up your dream band.
From New Zealand. This is a struggle again.
Dread from Promise of Bloodshed.
That is the correct answer.
So you've got Izzy on drums, Mikey Shields on bass, unknown guitarist, Dread singing.
Yeah.
What's it called? Okay. Let's see. The first thing that comes to mind: international fantasy band. Who's the drummer? One pick.
Dennis Merrick from Earth Crisis.
Nice.
Just undisputed groove, great player. Yeah.
Cool. Who's the guitarist?
I'm gonna go versatile on this one. I'll go Todd Jones. So Carry On, Terror, Nails. He was in Blacklisted briefly. Betrayed. Yeah. Just very good at very many different styles.
Sick.
Yeah.
Mikey Shields on bass. Who's the singer?
Yeah. In a fantasy hardcore band. Who's singing? I'll go with James Bullock, the Human Furnace from Ringworm.
Nice.
He inhabits a special lane of vocalists for me where you've got, I don't know, Dwid from Integrity, Human Furnace from Ringworm, Rob from Most Precious Blood, Kevin Baker from the Hope Conspiracy, where the rage in their voice kind of borders on actual sounding like a lunatic, and I'm 100% here for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Get fucked. I don't know.
You're just gonna start laughing. I was gonna start laughing too.
Antagonist BC. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Nice.
You can cut that one.
That's
Swing and a miss.
Those are all my questions. What are your future aspirations now? So you're releasing a new Standover album. Where do you see yourself as a good example? Fucking no. A good example is the guys the guitarists of Gravel Pit and stuff, and just like keep playing in bands. Is that kind of like where you see yourself as just pattering along and
so
enjoying yourself in the scene?
Yeah, it'll be picking my time, picking my project. Says the guy who's in 3 bands all the time. But no, look, I'm really excited about getting a Standover record out and some fun shows that come along with that. Next year, hopefully, get a Gravel Pit album out and done. We'll take it from there. I still love creating with friends. I still love playing live, the energy of it. There's a lot about playing shows I could leave quite happily. Just the waiting around and the anxiety and the group chats.
Comment section and the
the absolute baseless complaints from people that never do anything themselves but always got something to say about what you do and how you should do it better. I can leave that behind.
Never heard of them.
Never faced that problem
Never
myself.
heard of them. No.
I still really enjoy what I'm doing and plan to keep doing it. I'm a dad now, so I've got to balance it all with that and being a good present father and husband. I'll be back on this couch in a few months. Life's good.
Telling me about the Standover album.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. What else do you want to talk? What else? Anything you want to say? Or anything you thought you wanted to say? Or?
I'm just thinking. I did have one fan submitted question.
Fan submitted question. Okay.
Yeah, fan submitted questions, and I'll try and protect the names of the submitters. So Mikey S. Hang on, that's too obvious. Mike Shields.
Can't think of who that could be.
He wanted to ask. He's been an avid follower of your Instagram, and points out that you appear to have been laying bricks in the same garden for 3 years. And what's your problem?
It's like, that's fine.
Got him.
I'm an apprentice. What can you expect? I'm a bricklaying apprentice. You can't expect. I started from the bottom, just digging holes, laying metal, leveling. And then I was paving. Then I was building the brick walls, and then first starting off on a straight wall. Now I've got a couple curves in there. Now I'm cutting bricks, making things look nice.
Cool. Now I didn't know all of this, so people have been watching. People have been taking notes. And bringing you the hard questions.
Nice.
What's going on with your garden?
I couldn't actually build a wall, like a straight wall, but I can build like a rose garden. So like it's something that's like knee or hip height. That's kind of got a curve and nothing kind of has to be quite perfect. So that's my it's my speciality after being a coffee roaster for 14 years and a PT for 5 years, and then losing my job over COVID. Now I'm a bricklayer.
Right. I didn't actually know that. There was the Uber driver period as well.
I was doing Uber while I was studying to be a PT while I was a coffee roaster too. So I was Uber driver for like 2 years, and I'd just drive people to the airport in the mornings. I'd only work in the mornings and on some weekend nights.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely done a few things to make the dream work. It's extremely difficult trying to ask your boss for constant time off.
Yeah.
You end up losing your job, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. How often do you catch up with your former bandmates from Force-Fed Trauma?
Oh, well, JSAG is one of my oldest friends, the singer of Soul Void. So, yeah, I see JSAG. Who else was in that? Paul was in that. Josh VC, I never saw again. Josh VC,
I recall from Punk Az days.
Yeah. And then a few people come in and through, but Steve Carpendale was the bassist, and he was one of my BMX friends.
Right.
And Steve Carpendale was, so when we used to ride BMX together before we were into music, he played guitar before I played guitar, and he taught me how to play guitar. So he taught me 2 songs, Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water, and 3 Inches of Blood, Deadly Sinners.
That's that's 2 real different songs to show someone as a starter.
Yeah, well, those guys were into 3 Inches of Blood and 8
Right.
Foot Sativa, and what's funny enough, I told that story on the Vasily thing.
Yeah.
But the guys that got me into hardcore, you know, through the various other ways that I got into it, was the Gisborne guys. So we'd meet up at skate parks, and the Gisborne guys were going to Saving Grace shows and moshing.
True.
Yeah. So, and then, so it was like a big, massive, those are the guys from Force Fed Trauma. And then me and JSAG went on to do Force Fed Trauma. We were in a band before that, which I forget, was called like Tooth for Tooth. And then after that, I don't think we did Too Late together, but we were in Too Late at different times. So when he left Too Late to go live in Melbourne and drum for Imprisoned, I mean, he was the guitarist, and I think I took over the guitarist because Mike Shaw was always the drummer.
Yeah.
And then after the Xile EP, and I started writing the album, and we started to tour more heavily, and guys dropped off. Pretty much all of Xile dropped off. I took my demos and went into the practice room with Josh, and Josh helped me write the drums for some of those songs.
True.
Yeah. So me and Josh still close to this day. The other week I wrote him a PT plan.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go. Wanted to bulk up his shoulders and his guns.
Getting them gains.
Most vocalists do.
Yeah.
You know? So
nice.
Me and JC quite close. Force Fed Trauma. I'll tell you a cool fact about Force Fed Trauma. If you go to the one and only band photo on the metal page thing, you'll see me and Steve wearing my t-shirts, which are original Slayer t-shirts. One is the 1984 Live Undead tour t-shirt, and the 1986 Rain and Blood Criminally Insane tour t-shirt too. Those are originals that I got off eBay.
Nice.
Cost me like $200-$300 at the time. They're worth like over $1,000 now.
Good shit.
There you go.
I really should have done more prep on my fan questions. I just had the one sick burn from Mikey Shields.
Yeah. How did you come up with Force Fed Trauma?
I just remember it from Punk As days.
Oh, true.
Because I was trying to figure out like your transition between bands and stuff, like FFT, you were in Too Late, then the Burial, did the Burial crossover with Antag, but I think I mapped it all out.
So after the Burial was my only time in like almost kind of like 20 years that I wasn't in a band for like 6 months is when the Burial ended, and then I think not long after that I was on an Antagonist tour. That was the only time, and that's when I actually when the Burial ended. I wrote the first song for Xile, which was Burn, which was on the EP, but that sat in like a demo mode for like 5 years until it got released.
Oh, true.
Yeah. But Force Fed Trauma was really when we would walk around the street and go look for venues, like knock on people's doors, like churches, places, and just like look in the doors, and if they had a space that they could put a show on, we'd ask them if we could have shows there. Nice. And we'd just put shows on and burn venues. You know what I mean? Just like never put a show on there again.
Yeah.
But that was really right, and when I was like hyper motivated to do stuff.
You still are.
Yeah.
No, I just asked FFT because I seem to recall something from like the Punk As era with Josh VC getting in fights.
Yeah. So he had a big problem with, I think him and Angry Andy dated the same girl, or there's some kind of crossover there, and we'd just turn up to shows, and those guys would just like not have any words and just fight like over nothing, bro. And I'd be like, man, I just come to the show to just kind of like hang out and just watch some good music. And
and not fight maybe.
Yeah. Those guys were just like intolerable, you know, like, and you just couldn't speak them out of it. Yeah. But I never saw Josh VC again. I think when I joined the Burial, there was a crossover. I was in Force Fed Trauma and the Burial at the same time. And then he was annoyed because Force Fed Trauma was actually doing quite good, and deathcore was massive in those days, and like the big names like the Annotations of an Autopsy guy did our artwork and stuff like that. And then people kind of, Steve was only in it because I was in it, my BMX mate, and then it kind of drew away from like what they wanted to do. And I think he got, you know, just kind of biffed it. Yeah. And I never saw him again.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
But he was big into my introduction to the scene and stuff. He was always moshing at shows. And yeah, he was cool. He was a cool guy. We had a lot of fun in Force Fed Trauma.
Nice.
Yeah. Because that was my passions were like deathcore and hardcore. It wasn't punk and hardcore. It was like metal, deathcore, hardcore. That side. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, bro. Thanks for being on the pod today. I really appreciate it. We've had a big chat. It's cool to get to know you a bit.
Yeah.
More.
No, it was awesome. Really appreciate the time to have just a good old yarn, stroll down memory lane.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a good time. Just goes to show you persevere at something you're even half capable at. You can do it for a long time.
Just goes to show if you're in your mid-30s and you try hard enough, you might get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say on top of that, if you don't like to line up for a show, go and book a better one yourself. Don't like the poster for a show, go and make your own show. Poster for the show that you're probably not going to book. And generally just shut up.
Did you want to avoid the classic question where as you being a drummer and in the scene for 25 years, got any advice for the younger bands coming up?
Buy some decent gear.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy who shows up and he's like, here's what I'm going to need from you.
Yeah.
And a long list of demands. I've seen the messages.
Yeah.
I won't go
Bro,
down.
true story.
Won't go down that path.
That has got me into a lot of bands. I'm pretty sure it got me into the Burial because I had a bass guitar and I had a whole stack. I beat out the other guys who just didn't even have gear. Maybe they considered me when I first joined Antagonist because I had a guitar and a whole rig and I had a bass and a whole rig.
Yeah.
There's more than people perceive, and then that obviously took my trajectory on there. And that just goes to show, because all those guys were older than me, goes to show that no one that old had all the gear. They had all the gear. You know what I mean?
You can get by borrowing shit, but it's always way heaps meaner if you've got your own gear.
Well, it has been. Quite often someone will come to me and be like, I'm starting a band. Do you know someone who does this? Like, I know this, this person. And commonly, they'll list out, who they are. And I know a little bit about people, and I'll be like, he's maybe ask him if he's got gear, because my mind thinks about the end and and I don't want to give a recommendation for somebody if I know that the end is going to be, that person is like a bit frugal and like is always complaining about this and actually doesn't have gear, and especially if it's like someone that I like that asks me that I know that's going to be doing a new band or going to be putting their passion into it, and for me to recommend someone that's also kind of like not my friend, I don't mind just stating the facts because I know that's going to hold you back.
Yeah.
So
get
out there, buy some good gear, and it will do well. It'll serve you well. It'll go great every time on stage. And then what you don't consider is that you might be a consideration for someone else's band member.
Yeah.
Purely based on that you look like a whole package. You know what I mean? So
love a whole package, eh?
Yeah. And on that note, thanks very much.
Cheers, brother. Good pop.
Woohoo!
Peace.
And that's the end of the podcast with Jace. I don't know why I'm calling him Jace. It's like a mixture of Jace and Face. Jason, that's the end of the podcast with Jason. So hope you guys enjoyed this new long form factor. So usually I'd split the podcast that are this long into 2 parts, but the second part hasn't been doing as well as the first part. I think people get all excited about the first guest. When the guest pops up, and then when the part 2 comes, no one clicks on it. I don't know. Anyway, so this is probably going forward. I'm just going to release these as a whole. So thanks for making your way through the podcast. We've got some cool things lined up. So right now on the editing desk is Bones and Gareth, and they're talking about the old Hamilton days, obviously drop-off point as well. I've also got backlogged, you're the first person to hear this, Chris Bosman as well. So he's talking about 99 to 2004, and we stop right up before Antagonist gets started. I'm actually quite backlogged at the moment on this Saturday. I've also got Izzy, Boozy, and Moff talking about the early days of Antagonist and touring Australia. And then on Sunday, I have got all the guys, the Xile guys, for the first time, and we're going to run through from start to finish our Japan tour. So I know I'm letting a whole lot slip right now, but if you made this to the end, I really appreciate this. Thank you very much. And if you want to support the podcast, you can head over to the Xile web store. So I've only got Xile shit to sell. Got that new t-shirt that I promoted at the start of the pod, done by Jack from Guilt Trip. He's got a design company called Riff Raptor. We also haven't done a white t-shirt in ages. And we've got these cool holographic stickers. And with every order, like a 10 pack of Xile stickers comes out as well. So, yeah, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you next time. Sweet dreams from Grafton City. I'll see you next time on the Kiwistyle podcast. it's not even in fucking focus. Come on. See ya.